What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers. We're going to go balls deep into UFC Vegas 42. We have Max Holloway going against Yair Rodriguez. An interesting card. Can't wait to get into it. And I'm here, as always, with the man behind the stats. We have Uncle Weezy. Uncle Weezy, how are you? You looking forward to this card?
Yeah, not as much as the last two. Obviously, those last two cards were absolutely fantastic, and now we're back to the fight night. We're back to Vegas, the Apex. So a little bit less of a name value card, but, we got 12 fights to go over here. Hopefully we can find some spots, some gambling opportunities, get some action on this card.
Yep, for sure. As always, can't wait to go through it with you in the chat as well. Speaking of the chat, what is up to you guys? We have Blade, the first one in the chat, saying, yo, what is up, Blades? We have Roy as well saying, oi. Gaming Wolf, we have Sean V. We have Andy in the chat. Real news. Appreciate y'all hanging out early in here. Y'all can smash the like button. As always, all the likes are very appreciated. Tim as well. And then Indigo, if y'all can smash the like button, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. We'll be going live once again on Tuesday for the DFS show, me, Weezy, AJ, and Luke. So make sure you are subscribed, not miss out on all of that. All right, we'll do a quick recap of last night. Last night's card was phenomenal. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. So for me, this was the most action I've ever had on a card. I think I had like 22 and a half units. And I'll go through the wins first. So I had 2 units on Bobby Green at minus 168, 3.5 units on Ian Gary, minus 325. 3 units on Dustin Jacoby, minus 290. 2 units on Rose Zhangwei Li, over 2.5, minus 190. 2 units on Usman Covington, over 2.5, minus 200. 2 units on that. And then I had 2.5 units on Pereira Michailidis fight doesn't go to decision, minus 170. And then now for the losses, I had 1 unit on Zhangwei Li, plus 100. Close fight. Can't argue that Rose won. I thought she did great, especially rounds 4 and 5. Gaethje Chandler fight doesn't go to decision. This is what hurt me for the night. I had 4 units on it, minus 260, and this is like a 5-unit swing for me. So it would have been a massive night if that fight had finished. I don't know how it didn't finish, but it didn't. I had 1.5 units on the Osborne Vergara under 2.5 rounds, minus 130. Didn't really get close to finishing at any point. Kind of looked like a sparring fight to start off the card, which was weird. And then half a unit on Bogdasarian wins in round 1 or round 2. Didn't quite get there. Souza did a lot of running away. And then Usman wins by knockout, half a unit, plus 150, almost. And I just looked through my bets, and there's not a bet I really regret. I don't regret the bet on Zhangwei Li, plus 100. I don't regret the bet on Gaethje Chandler. Fight doesn't go to decision, minus 260. I really thought that fight would have finished. But all in all, it was an okay night. Small loss, 0.67 units. Again, if that fight would have finished, man, it would have been like a 5-unit profit night for me, even more than that. But Uncle Weezy, how'd you do, and how'd you enjoy the card last night?
Man, that pay-per-view card was absolutely unbelievable. Those fights from top to bottom. I mean, starting out with Gaethje Chandler was just amazing, and then it just, it kept getting better. The Quarantillo Burgos fight was fire. The Vera knockout of Edgar was unbelievable, and then 2 great title fights. I had a great time watching it. It was my second lowest investment ever in a card, though. There were just no spots that were sticking out to me. And the ones that I did like were juiced up just crazy by the time I went to bet them, so I just stayed away. I had 2.2 units on the Michailidis Pereira fight doesn't go to decision that cashed, and then I had a little quarter unit sprinkle on Chris Curtis to win in round 3 at plus 2,600, and obviously that didn't hit. He got the first round knockout, but yeah, I mean, up 0.75 units. I barely even bet that card, so I just got to sit back and enjoy it. And luckily for me, the fights were definitely worth watching. And we don't have as much exciting in terms of name fights on this card, but hopefully I can find a lot more spots to invest in, hit some bets this week.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, it was a great card, man. Tim saying process over results there. Man, those are great bets, Brady. I 100% agree, Tim. If you make the right bets, the results will come. Appreciate that. And then Jay saying 6 more seconds for the over 1.5. Oh, I felt so bad. That was like the most popular play of the week, that over 1.5 rounds. Even I was about to get on that. And I remember messaging you, Weezy, and said, hey, man, over 1.5 rounds, Barnett, Volante, minus 115. What do you think? And you said right away, what did you say, 1-800 gambler?
Yeah, I said, I'm calling the orderlies, man. You can't bet on that fight. Like we were joking around about that fight, and I said I could actually see Volante coming out there, starting the fight and then just taking a knee and tapping twice. Like I could have seen that happening. Like that's how bad he looked. That's how, like already retired. It looked like he didn't train for the fight at all. Yeah, and even Sean Strickland, I think, was calling him out on Twitter saying he took a dive there. So, boy, I mean, that was probably the thing that I'm most proud of this week was my staying steadfast that I would not gamble on that fight, that I would not bet that fight. And a lot of people that went heavily on that over really got clipped. And, it's just not the type of fight I like to bet on. You just never know what either one of those guys are thinking or what they're fighting for. And we saw Volante go off into the sunset, and hopefully he finds a nice little TV show to do on Netflix and make some money for the rest of his life.
Yeah, for sure, man. What a fight. Yeah, I agree with the play. I thought over 1.5 was really likely to hit, but man, what a way to not hit that. But yeah, 1-800-GAMBLER saves us again, Weezy. So we'll move on. I'm sure we have a couple 1-800-GAMBLER fights on this card we'll talk about for sure. But let's get into this card. Again, if you all can please smash that like button, it'd be much, much appreciated. And I say we get into the first fight of the night. And this bout order might be switched around. It's still very early in the week, but right now we have Kennedy and Zekachu going against Da Un Jung. We have Kennedy, 29 years old, 6'5" with an 83-inch reach. Da Un Jung, 27 years old, 6'4" with a 78-inch reach. Both guys are huge, but Kennedy's going to have a 1-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. Kennedy, he has 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He did make his UFC debut. I believe it was against Paul Craig. Lost by submission there. I believe he had a knockout against Dennis Bryant on the Contender Series. Decision win against Darko Stosic. A knockout win against Carlos Ulberg. A knockout win against Danilo Marquez. As far as Da Un Jung, he has 4-0 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. I believe he made his UFC debut against Khadis Ibrahimov, won by submission there in the 3rd round. He knocked out Mike Rodriguez, and then he had a split decision draw against Sam Alvey, and then just recently won against William Knight. So this is a very interesting fight because Kennedy and Zekachu is somebody that he's looking good. I'm really impressed with this guy. I did have a bet on him in his last fight against Danilo Marquez, and to be honest, I kind of walked away from that fight pretty disgusted. I was really looking to fade Danilo Marquez, but Marquez was able to have success in that 1st round. Kennedy didn't really make an attempt to get off the cage. He took his back for like all 5 minutes. And then round 2, same thing. I thought Danilo Marquez would slow down. He did a little bit, but he still was able to take down Kennedy, kind of control him. Even on the feet, like Kennedy wasn't doing much until like the last 10, 15 seconds. And then I walk away. I said, I'm not watching this anymore. And then I come back and Kennedy got an early knockout, I guess. I went back and watched it today, and Danilo just looked done. That's kind of the thing with Kennedy is he kind of is losing early on, and his opponents are kind of gassing out. Like Carlos Ulberg was teeing off on him. I forget the amount of significant strikes he landed, but he landed a ton, and then he kind of slowed down, and Kennedy finished him in that 2nd round. Darko Stosic is a gasser as well. He also kicked Kennedy in the nuts like 3 times. I think he lost like 2 points in that fight. And then Paul Craig is somebody that doesn't have the best gas tank as well. Then he finished him. But the interesting thing with Da Un Jung is he's going to have a gas tank, at least a lot better one than a Marquez or an Ulberg. So I'm curious to see how this fight does play out. Da Un Jung, a very solid striker, has a ton of power, not the most volume, but he showed a new wrinkle in his game that I had not seen before, and that is the wrestling, where he went out there and just took William Knight down randomly like 9 times. So, yeah, very interesting fight. I kind of like both these guys, so it's going to be a good one to start off the card here, Weezy.
Excellent one to start off the card. I mean, a couple of young prospects here. Kennedy only 29, Da Un Jung only 27. So they're very young for the division. But it's going to be Jung with the more experience, 7 more pro fights, about 50 more minutes in the cage, and about a year and a half more as a pro. And it's Nzechukwu, who's actually fought a higher percentage of his pro career at the UFC level, having 6 UFC level fights, while Jung only has 4. And it's actually Nzechukwu who has about 25 more minutes in the UFC cage. If we look at the finish numbers for these guys, it's pretty impressive for both of them, as Da Un Jung has an 85% finish rate as a pro, and he's finished 2 out of his 3 UFC wins. And Nzechukwu, 67% finish rate as a pro, all by knockout, and he's finished 3 of his 5 UFC wins inside the distance. We've seen Nzechukwu subbed in his only loss. That was by Paul Craig. And we've seen Da Un Jung subbed in one of his 2 losses. Nzechukwu lands 5 significant strikes a minute, absorbs 5.03 43% accuracy, decent power for a light heavyweight, and he's never been knocked down. And Da Un Jung lands just a little bit more than he absorbs, a little bit more accurate and a little bit more powerful on the feet than Kennedy, and a little bit better striking defense as well. And you mentioned the new wrinkle to the game, because prior to the William Knight fight for Da Un Jung, he was, I believe, 0 of 4 on his takedowns, and then he got 8 takedowns against William Knight, all with the very first trip you learn on the very first day of going to judo. I learned it as a 7-year-old. It's called Osoto Gari. It's an outside trip, and William Knight got outside tripped 8 times by Da Un Jung. He fell ill to the same takedown over and over and over again. And Chek Wu has been seeing a ton of takedown attempts, though. In his 6 UFC fights, his opponents have tried to take him down 45 times. So even if Da Un Jung goes to the wrestling here, and he might, because he's at a 5-inch reach disadvantage, and because Kennedy is a southpaw, this could be tricky standing up for Da Un Jung. And then you mentioned Kennedy's conditioning is absolutely fantastic. And Jung, if he does wrestle early and is unsuccessful with it, because Kennedy is so big and strong and is so good at maintaining range with those long 83-inch arms of his, I could see this being a really interesting back and forth fight. I think if it stays standing, Da Un Jung is going to have a hard time closing the distance against this dude. And I think that if Da Un Jung does go to the wrestling, that he may not be all that successful. I'm kind of liking Kennedy here. And when we look at the strength of schedule, we see a less than 1 ratio in the 4 fights that Da Un Jung has had in the UFC. He's facing Ibragimov, one of the worst light heavyweights to ever fight in the UFC. And then the next one was Mike Rodriguez, one of the worst light heavyweights to ever fight in the UFC. After that, Sam Alvey, who's lost 5 out of his last 6 fights. And then we got William Knight, one of the worst light heavyweights to ever fight in the UFC. So Da Un Jung has not had good strength of schedule. And then Chek Wu's fought some lower level guys too, and Ulberg, a guy with only, I think, 4 professional fights when he came in to fight in Chek Wu. Marquez, a pure grappler. Stosic, kind of a one-dimensional power wrestler. And then Paul Craig, a very good opponent. And that fight went into the 3rd round, and it was actually fairly close. So I think in Chek Wu, big time advantage in the tail of the tape here. He's got a 5-inch reach advantage, and he's a southpaw. He's actually fought a higher percentage of his career at the UFC level. And I think that Da Un Jung is probably going to have the advantage striking in terms of power, accuracy, and defense. But if Da Un Jung doesn't like how it's going on the feet, and if he has trouble fighting somebody who's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage over him, if he winds up going to the wrestling, I don't know if he's going to have success against Kennedy, taking him down and holding him down. I see this being a greasy, close fight. I do see it going to decision, even though 2 out of these guys' 3 professional losses have come inside the distance. I think that since they were both by sub, and neither one of these guys are particularly sub artists, that it's knockout or bust, and both of these guys are pretty tough. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, I think it goes to decision as well. Not a fight I have a ton of confidence in, but I'm actually going the other way on the Da Un Jung side. I mean, I take a look at Kennedy. He's still very green. He's making improvements. He did take a 2-year layoff off from the Stosic fight. He came back. He looked better against Carlos Ulberg. It was a really weird fight where he was just teeing off on him. And I'll get you the exact number, but Carlos Ulberg actually landed 83 strikes in the first round through 120, and he landed 63 in the second round. And like we talked about, Kennedy's conditioning is phenomenal. His durability is phenomenal. But yeah, Carlos Ulberg slowed down really bad, and then Kennedy did catch him there. It's a close fight, but yeah, I think the takedowns will be something to look at here. If I was Da Un Jung, I would go to the takedowns. Kennedy's takedown defense is really good. I think the takedown defense percentage could be a little bit skewed. Paul Craig went for 16. He was only able to get 1, but still his takedown defense is very good. His get-up game is very, very good. I guess one thing I don't like is when he does get up, he does tend to give his back, and that's what showed in the Marquez fight. Marcus took his back twice in that fight. And yeah, like you said, it's a close fight. I do like the power of Jung. I think Kennedy's going to have the volume advantage here, but Dong Jung hits very, very hard. I'm going to take Jung here to win. Like you said, it's probably going to be a very close fight, but I'm going to say mixes and takedowns here or there. The striking is very competitive. You got the volume, the length, the reach of Kennedy, and then you have Dong Jung, who does throw a ton of power. So you give me Dong Jung and give me Dong Jung by decision. And we actually have props out, a lot more props than usual. We were talking last night, and like they opened up the props like right after the fights, which was cool. But we have Da Un Jung opened up as a minus 155 favorite. He's now minus 141. Kennedy and Zekachu open up plus 135. He's currently plus 121. I don't see myself placing a straight bet on this fight. We have the over 2.5 rounds, minus 110. We have the under 2.5 rounds, minus 120. And then we have the fight doesn't go to decision, minus 140. The fight goes to decision is plus 100. I'm kind of leaning the fight goes to decision, but I don't know if I'll get there from a betting perspective because both guys do have a ton of power. So how about you, Weezy? Any thoughts on the money line? Any thoughts on the fight goes or fight doesn't go?
Yeah, like I say, both of these guys are pretty durable, in particular Kennedy and Chekwu. But Don Jung hits hard. But, like I say, this is going to be interesting for Jung how he handles, somebody with the freakish length and size that Kennedy has for this division. I have no idea how Kennedy makes 205 pounds at like almost 6'6", and it's not like he's skinny either. So, yeah, very interesting fight. I would probably bet the over 2.5 here at like minus 110, but it's not something I'm running to the window for by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, I do like Kennedy to win this fight here. I think it's going to be really close, though.
I like it. So we will move on to the next fight. Before we do so, we do have a dono. You guys are awesome. Sup, John Idemoto and Buddy. What's that? Do you know what that is, Weezy? John Idemoto? Well,
no, he's probably just shouting out a couple of his buddies here,
okay,
But yeah, dude, I don't know them, but shout out to those guys. You donate to the show, you get a shout out. That's for sure.
There you go. Shout out to you, David, and shout out to John and Buddy. There you go. All right, so we'll keep moving on. The next fight we have Mark Diakase going against Rafael Alves. We have Diakase, 28 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach. Rafael Alves, 31 years old, 5'8", with a 68-inch reach. So Diakase is going to have a 2-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. Another really tough fight to call for me. We have Diakase, who is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He had a decision loss to Rafael Fiziev in his last fight. He had a decision win against Lando Venata, a decision win against Joe Duffy, a decision loss against Nazareth Hackpress, and a submission loss to Dan Hooker. As far as Rafael Alves, he did make his debut against Damir Ismagulov, and he lost by decision there. And I was actually really impressed with what I saw from Alves. I want to say Ismagulov was something crazy like minus 500, and he definitely didn't look it. Alves came out with like in the first 30 seconds, he knocked down Ismagulov, almost finished him. Ismagulov was able to survive. And what really shocked me was the third round, where I kind of thought that Alves would be the one slowing down, but it was actually Ismagulov was the one that was slowing down, and Alves potentially won that round. He outstruck Ismagulov 16-15, which shocked me because Alves is typically a guy that he does slow down, but I believe he's training at MMA Masters. His cardio has been like making like improvements leaps and bounds. Like you take a look at some of his fights like a couple of years ago and compare him to now. It's just night and day, the cardio difference. So that's good because that really did hurt him in the past. He'd be like a round one fighter. He'd slow down and get finished, and he has a ton of finished losses. But again, I was really impressed with what I saw. He's a very well-rounded fighter. He's a black belt, I believe, in BJJ. Has a ton of power as well. Diakase is probably, the guy that's going to bring the volume. He's going to, bring the wrestling as well. I think he can get takedowns, but if he does get takedowns, he's going to have to mind his P's and Q's. So yeah, very tough fight. You have the volume of Diakase. You have the power of Alves. What are you looking at for this one, Weezy?
Yeah, first thing we got to look at is a 5-inch reach advantage and 3 years younger for Mark Diakase, also 2 inches taller. So yeah, very, very interesting tail of the tape size advantage here for Diakase. But it's going to be Rafael Alves, who has 11 more professional fights, so just a tiny bit more cage time. But it's crazy because right now I'm showing that the length of the pro career, I don't see how this is even possible. This must have been a data entry error on my part because it says that he's only been a pro for 4 years, but he has 29 fights. So I must have misentered the date of his career starting. But if he is doing that, that's 7 fights a year. So that would be crazy if that's the case. But
I'll look it up.
Yeah, look that up because that can't be right. That's so weird. But yeah, it's 11 more fights for Alves, a little more time in the cage, but it's definitely Diakese who's had 9 UFC fights in comparison to only 2 for Alves.
Yeah, Weezy.
Huh.
He started in 2007.
Okay, so I probably put 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 14-year career for Rafael Alves. So yeah, then he's obviously got the experience advantage here in terms of time and pro fights. If you look at how these guys finish fights, Rafael Alves has finished just as many by submission as he has by knockout, while Mark Diakese really more of a knockout artist here. And the interesting thing on Alves is he does have 10 professional losses. 9 of those losses coming inside the distance. The only guy to not finish Rafael Alves was Damir Ismagulov, who's actually undefeated in the UFC. But we know that Damir is not a finisher. So, very interesting situation here is, normally when I see 10 pro losses for Alves and 4 for Diakese, and that 10 of those 14 losses have come inside the distance, I'd be looking at an under bet. But I don't know. Alves gets subbed a lot more than he gets knocked out, and we haven't seen Mark Diakese in about 2 years. So if we look at the striking numbers, we see that Diakese in a nice 9-fight sample size is landing about 0.3 strikes per minute more than he absorbs. He's got 39% striking accuracy. He's got decent power for this division. 54% striking defense. He's been knocked down only once in 309 significant strikes absorbed in 9 fights. And Diakese has done a pretty good job with the wrestling too. So, 18.75% control time for 16 takedowns in 9 fights, averaging over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. But a 63% takedown defense for Diakese and only a 50% takedown defense in 1 fight or 2 fights for Rafael Alves. So both of these guys might choose to go to the wrestling to try to win some minutes here. On the feet, it'll probably be Alves with a little more power, but Diakese is a really skilled kickboxer with some really good technical aspects to his game. He's been doing this for a long time at the UFC level as well. And that's, going to be a little more evident when we look at the strength of schedule numbers here. There's no ratio for Alves because he's only really fought Ismagulov, who doesn't have a loss. So we can't, if there's no losses, we can't get a ratio. And Mark Diakese, 6.33 total fights, 1.19 ratio. He's fighting guys with winning records overall. His wins are to guys with losing records, and he's losing to much higher level competition than what he's beating. So, the problem with this fight, Brady, is that we're coming off a 2-year layoff here for Diakese. It would be nice to know if he's still training at AT&T or at ATT. And what he's been up to lately, why the long layoff? Have there been injuries? Has it just been a COVID thing? I don't know what's going on here with Diakese. And Alves is somebody that I just can't trust with my money right now, even though he looked really good against a very tough opponent in Ismagulov and had his moments in that fight. This guy does have 10 professional losses. 9 of them have come inside the distance. It's kind of hard to trust either side here. Have you seen anything in the tape that's got you leaning either way?
It's a close fight. I think this should be, lined about really close. I guess what I saw was just the improvements that Alves is making, and I'm curious to know when he did go to MMA Masters, because I'm looking at a lot of these losses. They're a long time ago. Like he has a loss in 2011 by submission, 2012 by submission, 2012 by submission, 2012 by submission. 2012 by retirement. So a lot of these losses are like really early in his career when he was really young. So, but yeah, I'm seeing a lot of improvements. The gas tank's looking better. That's big. That was kind of the one knock on him was the gas tank. The other knock on him is going to be the volume. It's a close fight because, Diakese is going to, have the more volume. Diakese can probably get takedowns here, but I think the more dangerous fighter is Alves. I think he's going to have the bigger moments of this fight. You mentioned the 2-year layoff of Diakese. That's not something good you want to talk about there. And then Alves, he's been more active at least. So, yeah, it's a close fight. We do see the line is close as well. We see that Alves opened up as a plus 185 dog. He's now plus 140. Mark Diakese opened up minus 220. He's now minus 160. So some money is coming in on Alves. Close fight. I'm going to side with the dog here slightly. I don't know if I'm going to get here for my bet, but I think it should be a really close fight. Diakese with the volume, Alves with the power. I can see him potentially hurting Diakese. I think the submission's live as well. Alves, although he's been submitted like 20 times, he still is a black belt in BJJ. He still is very dangerous on the mat, and Diakese has been submitted before. So I'll take Alves to win. I'll say inside the distance. I don't feel overly confident in it. We have the over 2.5 rounds juiced to -180. I don't love that. The under 2.5 rounds, +150. Fight goes to decision, -145. Fight doesn't go to decision, +105. I think, if anything, I'd be kind of tempted on the under 2.5 rounds, especially at +150. It's just Diakese isn't much of a finisher. But with that said, Alves has been finished a lot. So kind of a tricky situation here, Weezy. But that +150 is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I find it very interesting because not only is Rafael Alves very explosive, especially early in a fight. We got to keep in mind that this guy Diakese hasn't even been in a cage for 2 years. So, it's very possible that this guy, while he's trying to get his cage legs underneath him, that Alves just catches him and puts him away, which is almost what Alves did to Demetrius Magulov. And then in addition to that, we know that Alves has been finished in 9 of his 10 losses. So no way in hell would I pay up -180 or even -165 for an over 2.5 here? +150 for the under 2.5 is very intriguing. It's one of the only bets that's sticking out to me so far. Like that, that's not a bad spot for, in my opinion, +150.
Yep, the over 2.5 actually opened up -160, so some money's coming in on the over early, which is interesting as well.
A lot of losses inside the distance for Rafael Alves, and then a guy that's been away from the cage for 2 years. I would not want to be paying up. I mean, paying that kind of juice for that number. I don't like it.
Yeah,
For
but
the over, I mean.
do you know the exact number of times he's been submitted, though?
Yeah, for sure. Which one, Alves or because Alves has been
Alves.
submitted 6 times. Diakese has only been submitted once, but that's 4 professional losses for Diakese. Only once has he been finished, and it was by submission.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting because I think if Diakese's gonna get I just don't see Diakese finishing Alves. That's my only problem. Like, could he knock him out potentially? I think Alves would have to really slow down from to knock out Alves, and I don't see him submitting him.
Well, Diakese has finished 2 of his 5 UFC wins, and Rafael Alves has finished his only UFC win. So even on just like the 6 wins, there's a 50% chance on the finish side for wins, and then we look at the losses, and it's quite a bit more. So
Yep.
yeah, it seems like the value, in my opinion, just because of how we kind of handicap the value on these over-unders, is definitely the values on the under here.
Don't disagree with that at all. But yeah, it was something to be looking at there. The +150 under 2.5 kind of does stick out. But we'll keep moving on. We have the people's main event, right? Courtney Casey, Luana Jojua. We have Courtney Casey, 34 years old, 5'7", with a 67-inch reach. Luana Jojua, 26 years old, 5'4", with a 62-inch reach. So Casey's going to be much bigger. She's going to have a 3-inch height advantage and also a 5-inch reach advantage, but she is going to be 8 years older. So Courtney Casey, she has 2-3 in her last 5 fights, a decision win over Angela Hill, a decision loss to Cynthia Calvillo, a submission win against Mauro Morella Barella, a submission loss to Jillian Robertson, and a decision loss to JJ Aldrich. As far as Luana Jojua, she made her UFC debut against, I believe it was Sarah Moras, and she lost by knockout against Sarah Moras. And I'll repeat that, Weezy. She lost by knockout to Sarah Moras. Then she submitted Diana Belbita. I think that was the fight where Belbita took her down, and then she got like the armbar from guard. And then she also lost by knockout to Miranda Maverick. Yeah, this is a very interesting fight. I mean, this is a fight where I absolutely think Courtney Casey should roll. I know it's crazy saying that a 9-9 fighter should roll, but just watching Jojua, I mean, I just don't see it. Like, her striking's not good. Her striking defense is not good. Her wrestling's not good. Her grappling's okay. Her cardio's bad. I don't really know what she's good at. And I just don't know. I mean, Courtney Casey, she's well-rounded. She's a good striker. She's a brown belt in BJJ. Her takedown defense sucks. That could hurt her here. But Luana Jojua, her wrestling's not good. Like, she was able to take down Sarah Moras twice, but Moras reversed her both times. She was able to easily get up. And then she kind of gassed out. And just to see Sarah Moras dominate you just left a really bad taste in my mouth about Luana Jojua. Sarah Moras like picking you apart at range. Like, it was not good. But with that said, Jojua, she is young. She's 26 years old. I believe she's spending some time at Syndicate MMA, if I'm not mistaken. So that's good. I think she could be making improvements, but I think like she's gonna have to make a ton of improvements from what I've seen to win this fight here. So I like Courtney Casey. I like her quite a bit, but it is very terrifying being this common a 99 fighter, Weezy.
Yeah, so I'll give Casey the measurables advantage here, even though she's 8 years older. I think that age experience there is going to be kind of a factor here because we look at, Courtney Casey's got 18 professional fights, but 13 of them have been at the UFC level. So 75% of Casey's experience is at the UFC level, while Jojua, it's 25% of her experience is at the UFC level. So, I kind of like the measurables here for Casey, having a 3-inch height advantage, 5-inch reach advantage, having fought a much higher level of her career at this level, at the UFC level. And then we look at the finish stats here. Casey, 3 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, and Liana Jojua, 6 wins by submission in her career and 1 by knockout. And if we look at how these ladies lose fights, we see that Courtney Casey's been finished inside the distance in 2 of her 9 losses, both by submission. And then we've seen Jojua finished in 3 of her 4 losses. So if we add up the 13 losses, we will get 5 of those losses have come inside the distance. And in particular, Jojua has lost inside the distance 75% of her losses. So, there could be a sneaky little under bet here if we think that Courtney Casey has ways to finish this fight. And if we look at the striking numbers, we see that Courtney Casey, over a 13-fight sample size, lands more strikes than she absorbs. She has no knockdowns, and she's only been knocked down once. Her striking accuracy is right on par with Jojua's. Her striking defense is a little bit better than Jojua's, but when we dig a little bit deeper into the Jojua numbers, she lands 2.53, but is absorbing 4.86. So she's almost getting hit twice as much as she hits her opponents. That's a bad look. And then if we look at Courtney Casey, those 5 wins that she has in the UFC, 3 of them have been inside the distance, 1 by knockout, 2 by submission. And I'm not 100% sure, Brady, but I'm pretty sure that both of those submission victories for Courtney Casey are arm bars from guard. And,
Probably.
and that is Liana Jojua, how she got finished, how she finished Diana Belbita. So this is, it's kind of hard to see how Jojua wins this fight, because if she tries to get takedowns here, she's going to be in Casey's guard, and Casey's very good with that arm bar from guard. She could potentially win from there. And then, Casey has shown really bad takedown defense too. 38.64% takedown defense. And she's getting controlled almost 35% of the time, while Casey only controls her opponents 5% of the time. So both of these ladies are being out-controlled. In particular, Casey's being out-controlled by about 30%. Jojua is being out-controlled by about 25%. But, since neither of these ladies has a ton of great striking on the feet, I would give Casey the striking advantage. She's got really nice low leg kicks, and she's just spent a lot more time on her feet in the UFC than Jojua has. And then we see that Jojua is absorbing almost twice as many strikes as she lands. I could see Jojua potentially winning some minutes here with the wrestling, but she's got 0 takedowns, according to my stats, in 3 fights. So I don't know how she gets this fight to the ground, but Casey has terrible takedown defense. But if we look at the strength of schedule, neither of these ladies has faced killers yet, but it is Casey who's fought the better level of competition. It's kind of hard to see Jojua winning this fight unless it's by decision, and that she maybe uses some wrestling that we haven't seen from her yet in order to grind out a win on the ground. But I got to believe this is all Courtney Casey. She'll be better standing. She'll be dangerous on the ground from her back. And she's fought the better level of competition. She's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage, and she's fought a much higher percentage of her career at the UFC level. And she's more of an equal opportunity finisher than Jojua. I got to believe this is going to be Casey all day, but that line is a little wide.
Yep, I agree. Jojua, I think if she wins, it's like some type of armbar from guard. But even then, like Courtney Casey has a brown belt, she should be okay. Jillian Robertson did submit Courtney Casey, and then her last submission loss prior to that was in like in 2013. So yeah, I think Jojua is kind of armbar from guard or bust. I don't see her having success in the striking. She could potentially take down Courtney Casey, but yeah, I think Casey gets it done here. We see that Casey did open up as a minus 150 favorite. She's now minus 205. And Jojua opened up plus 130. She's now plus 175. People really like Jojua. I don't get it. Maybe the looks, but like her skills are. She still has a long way to go, and I think she can improve. I really do. She's young. She's a lot younger than Courtney Casey, but from what I've seen, it's just not great. I can't get to Jojua here at all. So I like Casey for the win. Minus 205. Yeah, it's probably too much on a 9-9 fighter. We see the over 2.5 rounds, minus 210. That opened up minus 160, so money's coming in on that. And then the under 2.5 rounds is plus 170. Fight goes to decision, minus 170. Fight doesn't go to decision is plus 130. If I had to make a bet in this fight, it probably would be a little stab on the under.
Yeah, the fight doesn't go at plus money. I kind of like that. The under 2.5 at plus 170. I kind of like that. Might have to find some plus money spots, that are mispriced here in order to find some value on this card, because I can't bet Courtney Casey at minus 200 against anybody at this point. Not a 9-9 fighter, even though I think she wins this fight and should win it fairly handily. That's a lot of juice to lay. And also just one thing, I just looked at Jojua's pre-UFC experience. She got submitted by Na Liang.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, and also lost a decision to someone named Zamzagul Faizalanova. So yeah, and then she's got a win over Maria Mokhtanina, who I think has got some fights at Bellator or somewhere. She's a decent fighter, so I don't know. It's hard to know what's going on here, but I would have to pick Casey. I can't see putting money on Jojua here, and the under is actually maybe tickling my fancy just a little bit, Brady.
Just a little bit. It's hard to put money on a fight like this, but yeah, that's one thing that did stick out to me. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. And we have a very intriguing one. We have a Sean Woodson going against Colin Anglin. We have Sean Woodson, 29 years old, 6'2", with a 78-inch reach. Colin Anglin, 28 years old, 5'9", 71-inch reach. So Woodson's going to be much bigger. He's going to have a massive 5-inch height advantage, and he's going to have a massive 7-inch reach advantage as well. As far as the last couple fights, Sean Woodson did make his UFC debut against Kyle Bochniak, had a nice knockout win on the Contender Series against Terrence McKinney as well. He lost by submission against Julian Rosa, and then he won by decision against Yusuf Zalal in a very close fight there. As far as Colin Anglin, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, had a decision win on the Contender Series, good win there. And then he went into the UFC and made his debut against Melsik Bagdasaryan, a guy we saw last night. And then Bagdasaryan ended up knocking him out in the second round with a head kick. So, yeah, it's an interesting fight. We have Sean Woodson, a guy that is a phenomenal boxer, a guy that brings a ton of volume. And this guy is getting better and better. We're seeing massive improvements in his takedown defense. And I can assure you that he is working on that, because when he fights people, they're trying to take him down. And why would they not? Like, this guy is huge, like absolutely huge for the division. But Sean Woodson has actually been taken down in every single fight in the UFC. Got taken down once by Kyle Bochniak, was taken down 3 times by Julian Rosa, was taken down 2 times by Yusuf Zalal, and was taken down twice by Terrence McKinney on the Contender Series. But we saw in his last fight against Yusuf Zalal went 2 for 17 on takedowns. Sean Woodson showed phenomenal takedown defense and a phenomenal get-up game. What I will say about this fight, though, is Colin Anglin will be the best wrestler that Sean Woodson has fought in the UFC and on Contender Series. Sean Anglin, I believe he wrestled, I forget which call. I think it might have been Michigan State University, but he does have a wrestling background, which is good. He's a solid grappler. But what I didn't like from Colin Anglin was the lack of takedown attempts. He kind of fell in love with his hands a little bit. You go outside of the UFC, and he's going out there and knocking guys out, and that's great. But I kind of want to see him wrestle more. Like in the Bagdasaryan fight, I thought he really should have went to the takedowns more. I think he only went for 1 takedown in that fight, which is really weird. And we talk about it all the time, Weezy, how if you're going to put up a wrestling-heavy game plan, you're going to have the gas tank to back it up. Yusuf Zalal has a phenomenal gas tank, and he was gassed out by the 3rd round trying to take down and hold down Woodson. So even if Anglin does go to the wrestling-heavy game plan, which he doesn't really do all that much, It's really hard to see him keep up a wrestling heavy pace for 15 minutes. So, yep, I like Woodson here to get the job done. I'm gonna say by decision, but again, this will be probably the toughest wrestler that Woodson has fought to date. So it's gonna be interesting to see how Anglin does approach this fight.
Yeah, very interesting. I think he's going to have to sell out on the wrestling because, making up a 7-inch reach disadvantage and a 5-inch height disadvantage is a lot, especially at the lightweight division. One thing I'd be interested to know, Brady, is if the chat knows where Woodson's been training, because I know he's been to Glory, but he's also been in some smaller camps around there as well, and he's kind of been bouncing around. I'd like to know if he's still training at Glory. That would be good to know. But both these guys are young. Neither one of them are 30 yet. Anglin only 10 pro fights. Woodson only 9. We know that Woodson has a background in boxing prior to MMA, while Anglin has that wrestling background. Woodson 4 UFC level fights. Anglin 2. We see Anglin has finished half of his wins by knockout and an eighth by submission, while Woodson has finished 3/8 of his fights inside the distance, 2 of them by knockout, 1 of them by submission. And if you add up the 3 losses between these 2 guys, 2 of them have been finished inside the distance. Woodson got Darce choked by Erosa, and Anglin was knocked out by Bagdasarian. Not much in the way of sample size here on the Anglin side, but he is landing more than he absorbs. He has been knocked down once. Sean Woodson showing some pretty nice striking numbers, landing 5.27 per minute, only absorbing 3.94, showing 43% striking accuracy, decent power at 2 knockdowns and 261 significant strikes landed. And he's never been knocked down, has Woodson. And then we look at Anglin, 5 takedown attempts in only 2 fights. So 2.5 takedown attempts per fight, but he's gotten 4 of them. So he's very efficient when he does shoot for the takedowns, getting them at an 80% clip, averaging 2.75 takedowns per 15 minutes, and out controlling his opponents 22% to 13%. But the thing about that is he's going to have to close this reach, disadvantage that he's at, which is already at 7 inches. And then we look at Sean Woodson, who's only had 4 UFC level fights, and this guy's already faced 44 takedown attempts. So let's say that Anglin does wrestle him. It's going to be the least fucking surprising thing in the world to Sean Woodson that he's getting wrestled again. I mean, let's face it. This guy knows he's going to get wrestled. Nobody wants to box with him. He's too tall. He's too long. He's too precise. He's got good footwork. He throws his punches straight. He knows what he's doing. He doesn't have a ton of power behind his punches, but he can volume you, and just like the optics really look bad when you're boxing against this guy. And the optics look bad when you're trying to take down somebody that's taller than you, longer than you, and you're unsuccessful. These judges are scoring for damage, not for control time. So unless Anglin is very efficient and winds up being way better with his wrestling than what we've seen thus far in the UFC, I see Woodson winning this fight, because Sean Woodson has done a really good job only being controlled 24% of his UFC career, despite the fact that his opponents are shooting 11 takedown attempts per fight. You would think that he would be getting controlled about half of the time that he's been in the cage. So, and you know what? Sean Woodson's been around 50 minutes, 12 minutes of control time for his opponents, and that's on 44 takedowns. So that's less than 20 seconds per takedown attempt of control time. So, I do see Woodson having success keeping this fight on the feet. The longer it stays on the feet, the harder it's going to be for Anglin to score. I do see Sean Woodson winning a decision here.
Sounds good to me. What is up, Chris? How you doing? And we got Jack and Tag as well. Thank you all for hanging out. We have Mo saying, did you guys watch Canelo? Your thoughts on Canelo versus Usman? My answer to that is no, I did not. I heard he won, though. And my thoughts for that is if it's a boxing fight, I go with Canelo. If it's MMA, I go with Usman. Pretty simple there. Weezy, how about you?
Yeah, I don't care how MMA fighters do in boxing matches. It's completely pointless to me. It's like me walking up to the chess master of the world, slamming down a checkers board and saying, let's play, bitch. Because that's what it is when when a boxer challenges an MMA fighter to a boxing match, it's like saying like, well, why don't you fight with one arm tied behind your back and then I'll just box because you can't take me down. So I mean, Usman would murder Canelo in 100 fights out of 100 if it was a real fight.
Yep, I agree there for sure. Thank you, Mo, though, for the dono. Big Steve, let's go. Thanks for the hard work. Thank you, Steve, for hanging out on a Sunday here. Chris, I agree with you. Thanks for speaking the truth. Weezy always speaks the truth. Planet saying Stat Diggers is the best way to start the week. But getting this back to this fight here, we see that Woodson is a huge favorite. And to be honest, Weezy, before looking into this fight, I thought I'd be parlaying up Sean Woodson. He opened up minus 300. He's now minus 260. And I no longer want to parlay Sean Woodson. The reason being, again, this is going to be the best wrestler that he's fought thus far. If Anglin does come in here with a wrestling-heavy game plan, a very smart game plan, getting this fight down to the mat early and often, he could potentially have some success. It's just I really struggle to see him doing that for 15 minutes is the problem. But yeah, McKinney was able to have success in taking down Woodson in round 1. He took his back and controlled him for the whole round. And then round 2, he also controlled him for like 2 minutes in that fight. He got up, Woodson kneed him in the face, but we have seen Woodson struggle a bit on the mat, but he's getting better and better each and every fight. Like Weezy, you were talking about, he's doing some work at Glory MMA. That's great news. And I think we're probably going to see the best version of Woodson here. So it's Woodson for me, but I don't love the price tag, to be honest. We see the over 2.5 rounds is minus 180. Open up minus 110. It's now minus 180. The under 2.5 rounds is plus 150. Fight goes to decision, minus 165. Fight doesn't go to decision is plus 125. I'd kind of lean to the over, but I don't know if I want to run and pay minus 180 for it. How about you, Weezy?
Yeah, if you put a gun to my head, I would bet the over in this fight. And I hadn't even looked at this line. This line is really wide, man.
It is.
Minus 260, minus 270 for a guy that's not really a finisher in Woodson. Is really more of a point fighter, volume-based boxer with good takedown defense that keeps the fight standing. But like you say, if Anglin were to get 2 good takedowns, like put him flat on his back and keep him there for 90 to 120 seconds, if he could do that in 2 out of 3 rounds, I wouldn't mind holding a plus 220 ticket on Colin Anglin. But I still think, Woodson does have really good takedown defense. It's going to be a tough test for Anglin. It's going to be a tough test for Woodson. It's going to be a good fight. But I would bet the over, and I like Woodson here, but it's unbettable at minus 275, man. There's no value there.
I agree. And I was even tempted on Anglin, but just going back and watching the fight with Melsick, why? It make no sense. Why would he only try to take down Melsick one time? He was successful in it, but why only do it once, Weezy?
Yeah, especially against Melsick. I mean, the guy's a pure kickboxer with a ton of power. You would think that, even Mihalidis, yesterday went out there and wrestled Pereira for the first round. And the second he stopped wrestling, what happened? I mean, it's an easy thing to say, Anglin's going to have to wrestle this guy, but still, I just don't, he's got to, when you have that big reach advantage and those tall guys are impossible to take down, whether it's double or single legs, they can always post. And then you throw a fence in there too, and it makes it even more difficult. When you're in a mat and there's no fence, tall guys are a lot easier to take down than when there is a fence.
Yep, for sure. And like you talked about, you said damage is important to the judges, right? Eustace Law went out there, took down Woodson twice, controlled him for 1/3 of the fight, and the judges still gave it to Sean Woodson there because he was landing the better shots.
That's right. It's and when you go after that takedown over and over and over and over again, and you're not getting them, the optics are so bad.
Yep, exactly. Do agree there. But yeah, good fight. Lines wide, gonna pass. But we'll move on to the next fight. So next we have a probably one of the better fights on the card. We have Miguel Baeza going against Khaos Williams. We have Baeza, 29 years old, 6'2", with a 74-inch reach. Khaos Williams, 27 years old, 6 foot with a 77-inch reach. Baeza is going to be 2 years older, gonna have a 2-inch height advantage, but he's gonna have a 3-inch reach disadvantage. Taking a look at the last few fights, Baeza, I believe he made his debut against Hector Aldana. Also had a win over Victor Reina as well. Had a knockout win over Matt Brown, a submission win over Takashi Sato, and then just recently a decision loss to Santiago Ponzinibbio. A very fun fight there. As far as Khaos Williams, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut, I believe it was a big dog against Alex Morono. He goes in there and starches Morono in 30 seconds. Then he goes in there and starches Abdulrazak Al Hassan in less than a minute. And then he loses a decision, a very close decision to Michel Pereira, and then wins a decision against Matthew Semmelsberger. So, I mean, I think I was kind of wrong about Khaos Williams. I mean, taking a look at some of his work outside of the UFC, I wasn't all that impressed. Actually, outside of the UFC, I think he has only like 2 knockouts. So I was shocked to see that he came in here and showed that much power, just starching guys left and right. And I guess I was a little bit wrong about him. I didn't think he was Usyk caliber. I was picking Morono against him. I was picking Abdulrazak Al Hassan against him as well. But he's kind of won me over a little bit. And I've always been pretty high on Miguel Baeza as well. So 2 guys that I am pretty high on. I think this is a very good fight, Weezy.
Yeah, man. I mean, Baez is such an exciting prospect. And then you look, and Khaos Williams is actually 2 years younger than Baeza is. And Khaos is going to have the 3-inch reach advantage here. He's also got the experience advantage, like about 40 more minutes in the cage as a pro, 3 more pro fights. But it's been Baeza who's been a pro for longer than Khaos Williams, which just means that Khaos has been more active as a pro, fighting over 3 times a year, while Baeza fights less than twice a year. And it's Baeza who's fought a higher percentage of his career at the UFC level. 80% finish rate for Baeza as a pro, only 58 for Khaos Williams. And neither one of these guys has ever been finished in 3 professional losses, but they're guys that bring a ton of power. Baeza is landing a knockdown on 1.8% of the total significant strikes that he lands. Khaos Williams is landing a knockdown on 1.24% of the significant strikes that he lands, and neither one of these guys has ever been knocked down. So we got power, we got durability, we got volume here too, as Khaos is throwing 13.38 significant strikes a minute, and Baeza almost 11. And then we see not much wrestling. 6 combined takedown attempts from these guys in 9 fights. So, and then we look at the control time. Neither one of these guys has even amassed 10% control time thus far in the UFC. And Miguel Baeza showing 100% takedown defense, and he's been controlled less than 1% of his UFC career, which is really impressive. Williams has been taken down in both times that his opponents have tried to take him down. He's been taken down, but it looks like he's been only controlled for less than 2 minutes. So his get-up game must be pretty good as well. If we look at the strength of schedule numbers and the metrics that I have Khaos Williams fighting the tougher strength of schedule here with Semmelsberger, Pereira, Al Hassan, and Morono. While if we look over at Baeza, it's Hector Aldana, Matt Brown, Takashi Sato, and Santiago Ponzinibbio. I like Baeza here. I think he's the smoother striker. I think he's kind of like the more hyped guy. And I do think that he can get a little bit of minute winning potential using his wrestling if he wants to. But I just see him being the cleaner, crisper striker on the feet here. And having fought just a little bit higher of a percentage of his career at the UFC level, I think makes a difference as well. Both of these guys with a ton of power, both of these guys with a ton of durability as well. This is going to be a banger.
Yep, it's an absolute banger. I missed it. DXJC saying, "Y'all forgetting Baeza almost lost to Matt Brown's corpse." Yes, he did. And yeah, he was saying like, Baeza is a little bit chinny. I kind of agree. I've seen him hurt quite a bit so far in the UFC, but yeah, I'm kind of on the Baeza side as well with you, Weezy. I actually see the same thing. I think he potentially could go for takedowns. I think he's gotten 2 thus far in the UFC, Baeza. 2, yeah, so 2, and believe it or not, he has a black belt in BJJ with 1 submission on his record coming against Takashi Sato. So yeah, I think the takedowns could be an interesting way to attack this fight for him. But yeah, on the feet, I feel like it's going to be really close. Both guys throw with a lot of volume. Both guys throw with a lot of power. I just see it being a really close fight. Don't know if either guy gets knocked out. Williams seems to have like some seriously good durability. Both guys do, but I kind of lean the durability edge to Khaos Williams there. Like I said, Baeza got hurt bad in the Brown fight a couple times, and I think Ponzi hurt him a couple times as well. So we see the line. Baeza is a favorite, open up -180, currently -145. Some money coming in on Khaos Williams. Khaos opening up +155 and currently +125. Yeah, I'll pick Baeza. I don't feel like overly confident in it, but I will pick him to get the win. As far as the over is set at 1.5, The over 1.5 is now -175, open at -155. The under 1.5 is sitting at +145. I'd say over, but man, it's going to be very sweaty with both these guys throwing bombs at each other. But yeah, I'll say over 1.5 rounds. Not going to bet it. Fight goes to decision +125. Fight doesn't go to decision -165. Yeah, leaning over, but not with much with confidence. Weezy, anything sticking out to you in terms of the props or the line?
Did you say this is? Oh yeah, so there is an over 1.5 here. At -175, I think that's worth a look, seeing as both of these guys have been pretty durable. And the one thing that we can say about both these guys, they got a lot of heart too. That Baeza Ponzinibbio fight was a war. Baeza, his win over Matt Brown was a comeback win. Baeza's tough, and he's an MMA Masters guy as well, along with Rafael Alves and along with a guy who just fought last night in Colby Chaos Covington. And if Colby's getting Miguel Baeza ready to use some wrestling, training with a guy like Colby could be the best thing that happens to Baeza, because his ability to get hit, and he has been hit. He might want to start trying to wrestle a little bit more and use that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt that he has here. So that's another reason that I like Baeza, is I think he's probably the more well-rounded fighter here. We haven't seen him go to his ground game much because he is so confident in his boxing and his stand-up. But this having more than one way to skin a cat is definitely a good thing to have in this octagon. And that Baez is training with Colby, so they're the same weight class. These guys probably work together quite a bit and are making each other better. Iron sharpens iron, and I do like his chance here to get this job done. I think it's going to be Baeza here, but I'm going to pick him to win by decision because both these guys are really tough.
Yep, Baeza to win by decision, sitting at +220.
Not bad, man. That's not bad. I like that.
Yep, not terrible, but we will continue to move on. We have Cynthia Calvillo going against Andrea Lee. We have Cynthia Calvillo, 34 years old, 5'6", with a 64-inch reach. Andrea Lee, 32 years old, 5'6", with a 69-inch reach. So Calvillo is going to be 2 years older. She's going to have a 2-inch height disadvantage and a 5-inch reach disadvantage as well. In terms of their last couple fights, we have Calvillo. She is 2-2 and a draw. In her last 5 fights, she had a decision win over Courtney Casey, a draw against Marina Rodriguez, a decision win against Jessica Ai, a decision loss to Caitlin Chukagian, and then a knockout loss to Jessica Andrade. As far as Andrea Lee, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights, a decision win over Montana De La Rosa, a decision loss to Joanne Calderwood, a decision loss to Lauren Murphy, a decision loss to Roxanne Modafferi, and then a submission win over Antonina Shevchenko. So, yeah, we have a pretty easy fight to break down. It's we got a striker versus a grappler. Andrea Lee is going to want to keep this on the feet. She's going to want to outstrike Calvillo. I do give Andrea Lee the striking advantage. I love her volume. She's going to have a big reach advantage as well. I do favor Andrea Lee on the feet quite a bit. On the mat, though, Calvillo, I believe she's a black belt. Andrea Lee has shown a hole in her game, and that hole is going to be the takedown defense. And going back and looking at some of her fights, Joanne Calderwood was able to take her down a few times. Lauren Murphy was able to take her down a few times. That's all good and okay. But Roxanne Modafferi took her down, I believe, in every single round. Roxanne Modafferi took her down 4 times, and she ultimately lost to Roxanne, which is a big red flag to me. So I think if Calvillo can get this fight down to the mat, get some control time, I think the striking will be competitive. I do favor Lee there by just mixing in the takedowns, racking up the control time. If Roxanne Modafferi did it, 39-year-old Roxy, I think that Calvillo can very well do it here. By the way, Calvillo is coming in on somewhat short notice. I think Andrea Lee was supposed to fight Jessica Ai, so that is something to mention. But I feel like this is a very winnable fight for Calvillo if she does use a smart game plan here in getting takedowns.
Yeah, and we've seen Lee dominated on the ground before. So that is something to definitely keep your eye on here. It's going to be Lee with the tail of the tape advantage. She's 2 years younger. She's 2 inches taller. She's got a 5-inch reach advantage. So that's all very significant. And she's even got 4 more pro fights. She's got more cage time. She's been a pro for longer. But it's been Calvillo who's fought a higher percentage of her career at the highest level, 10 of her 13 pro fights in the UFC. So, Calvillo has been fighting some really good competition, while Lee, almost half of her career at the UFC level as well. Both of these ladies are multi-finishers in terms of being able to finish fights in more ways than one. 33% by sub for Calvillo, 22% by knockout, while for Lee, it's 42% by sub and 17% by knockout. In the 8 combined losses between these two ladies, only 2 of them have come inside the distance. So that leads us to believe that this has a pretty good chance of seeing the scorecards here. Like you mentioned, Andrea Lee doing really good on the feet, landing 5.48 and only absorbing 3.68 significant strikes a minute. So that's a 1.8 significant strike differential here for Andrea Lee. While for Calvillo, it's about a 0.5 significant strike differential, which is also good. But it's Lee who throws a little more volume. Lee's who's a little more accurate here at about almost 9% more accurate. And both of these ladies have really good over 64% striking defense. But like you said earlier, Brady, I think Andrea Lee's probably going to want to keep this standing. And then if we look at Andrea Lee's wrestling has been really good. She's getting takedowns at a 52% clip, averaging almost 2 takedowns per 15 minutes and getting almost 21% control time. But Calvillo definitely no slouch getting her own takedowns. 15 takedowns in 10 UFC fights, 44% takedown percentage, 1.77 takedowns per 15 minutes. And most importantly here, while we see that Lee is out-controlling her opponents 20% to 19%, we see Calvillo really out-controlling her opponents with the grappling. 22% control time for, only 1.56% control time against. So while Andrea Lee will probably be the better minute winner on the feet, it's probably going to be Calvillo that's going to be winning minutes on the ground here, as she can really rack up control time. She can get takedowns at a good percentage. She can get them efficiently, and she fishes for submissions on the ground. Very, very good finisher on the ground. And then if we look at the strength of schedule, that's Calvillo as well. She's fighting the more experienced, better win-loss ratio competition. The wins are very close for both of them, and the losses are better for Calvillo as well. Having lost to Calderwood, Murphy, and Modafferi is okay for Lee, but, if we look at Calvillo, draw to Marina Rodriguez, top 5, lost to Chukagian, top 5, and then wins over I and Casey, and I is like a top 10 fighter in the 125-pound division. So I want to see Cynthia Calvillo start to fall out of love with her hands again and start to fall in love with her grappling, because we haven't seen enough of it lately, Brady. Maybe it's because she's facing fighters like Andrade and Chukagian that we're not seeing her go to her grappling as much. But in order for her to be successful here, I want to see her taking down Andrea Lee. I want to see her grinding it out against the cage. I want to see her fishing for submissions on the ground and accruing a ton of control time.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if she didn't go for takedowns here. That'd be pretty much just throwing away the fight. But Carrillo is Dono. Appreciate you, Carrillo. $10. Teddy Bear did it. Uncle Weezy and left him out of my DK lineup. Need to rebound. Yep, Teddy Bear did do it. Appreciate the Dono, Carrillo. And yeah, he did do it. But time to rebound indeed. But we'll move on to this. So we have the odds here. It's very close. It is a pick'em, and we see if I can find it. Andrea Lee opened up plus 130. She's now minus 107. Cynthia Calvillo opened up minus 150. She's now minus 113. So, yeah, I mean, you take a look at Andrea Lee, and just the big thing that sticks out is that 57% takedown defense. Getting taken down by Calderwood twice, Murphy twice, and then Roxy Modafferi 4 times. She was also taken down by Montana De La Rosa 5 times. She was taken down by Ashley Evans-Smith twice. She was taken down by Veronica Mercado once. So she was taken down in every single UFC fight, believe it or not, outside of that against that bum, Antonio Shevchenko, where she looked really good. But again, Shevchenko is a bum. But yeah, the Modafferi fight is what really, really concerns me. I know people in the chat are all fans of her. I get it. I really like Roxanne as a person, but my goodness, getting taken down twice by Roxanne Modafferi in what round was it? It was round 2. She took her down twice she took her down twice in round 3, once in round 2, and then once in round 1, racking up 4 minutes and 50 seconds of control time. That is a big red flag to me. But yeah, like you mentioned, Uncle Weezy, Calvillo had 0 takedown attempts against Jessica Andrade in a fight where she obviously got knocked out in the first round. She had only, what was it, 1? Yeah, she was 1 for 4 on takedowns against Caitlin Chukagian. So 1 for 4 there. Prior to that, she did take down Rodriguez 3 times. She took down I 4 times. So yeah, I guess the concerning fight for me would be the Chukagan fight, where she only went for 4 takedowns and only got 1. But yeah, I think it's a solid spot for Calvillo. I think on the feet it's Lee. I think on the ground it's Calvillo. And I think if she does fight smart, it's a pretty good matchup for her. So we do see that the over is going to be juiced really bad to minus 300, rightfully so. I don't recommend laying overs that wide because we saw last night with Bobby Green, the over is like minus 400. I had people saying like lock in the over 1.5, lock in the fight round starts round 2 at like minus 1,000. I was like, oh, it's too wide. I think it hits, but it's just too wide. And then Bobby Green starches ally Quinta. Like crazy stuff like that can happen. So I don't really recommend laying like minus 300 on overs, but I think it does go over. I think Calvillo does win. I think she does win by decision, which is actually plus 205.
Yeah, I would go with the decision on this one as well. Like I say, we do have a good sample size of losses here between the two ladies, 8 of them, and only 2 of them have finished inside the distance. So, yeah, that would put you, if you were just to handicap the fight goes to decision based on that stat, it's actually priced perfectly at minus 300. 75% implied probability. That's what it's given us. So, yeah, this is a stay away on the time props. If you think that Calvillo has fallen in love with her hands, then I think it's going to be Andrea Lee. And let's face it, the money's coming in on Lee here. So I still think that Calvillo, her ground game is excellent. And if she chooses to use her wrestling in her ground game, she should be able to win this fight.
Yep, for sure. People give me a tough time about Roxanne Modafferi. What I will say is Roxanne Modafferi in the UFC has landed more than 2 takedowns twice against Andrea Lee and against Antonina Shevchenko. So, yep, I get it though. She's a veteran. I do like Roxy as a person there. But we'll keep moving on. We have Thiago Moises going against Joel Alvarez. We have Moises, 26 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach. Joel Alvarez, 20 years old, 6'3", with a 77-inch reach. Alvarez going to be 2 years older, going to have a massive 6-inch height advantage and also a 7-inch reach advantage. In terms of the last few fights, Thiago Moises is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision loss to Damir Ismagulov, a submission win against Michael Johnson, a decision win over Bobby Green, and a decision win over Alexander Hernandez, and a submission loss to Islam Makhachev in his last fight. Joel Alvarez, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a submission win over Maxim, a decision loss to Damir Ismagulov, a knockout win over Danilo Bellardo, a submission win over Joe Duffy, and a submission win over Alexander Yakovlev. And what I noticed on the Alvarez side is when he's winning, people are taking him down and he's submitting them. I mean, he has 0 takedown attempts and he has 3 finishes all on the mat in the UFC, which is really crazy to think about. Against Bellardo was able to take him down in the first round, dominate him the whole fight. The second round, same thing. And then Alvarez reverses him and finishes him with the TKO. In the next fight against Joe Duffy, he was a huge dog. Joe Duffy takes him down. He submits Joe Duffy right away. And then the same thing with Alexander Yakovlev, takes him down, and then he submits Yakovlev shortly after. So the problem with this is I don't know if that's going to work against Thiago Moises, somebody that is a BJJ world champ. I know he got submitted in his last fight against Thiago or against Islam Makhachev, but that is Islam Makhachev. I think we can cut him a little bit of slack there, but Moises is a legit black belt in BJJ. If Alvarez does armbar him or, get him in a triangle or something like that, it would shock me. But I think it's a solid spot for Moises here. On the feet, I really do like the improvements from Moises. We saw in the Alexander Hernandez fight where he made a ton of improvements there. I actually outstruck Alexander Hernandez in a decision. Didn't even need to take him down there, which kind of surprised a lot of people, including me. As far as Joel Alvarez, his striking's not great, but he is improving. He's very long, very rangy, solid kicks, but I do give the striking advantage slightly to Moises. I give the wrestling advantage to Moises. I give a lot of advantages to Moises, but Alvarez is very dangerous, so can't completely count him out. But I just think it's hard for Alvarez to get the win here if his path to victory is a submission.
Yeah. So let's just talk about a few things here. I mean, Alvarez is huge. Okay. He's going to be 6 inches taller than Moises. He's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage. Both of these guys are very young. Can you believe Thiago Moises is only 26 years old, dude?
So young.
That's so young, dude. I mean, 8 fights in the UFC, and he's got 20 pro fights in a 9.5-year career. And yeah, I mean, he started fighting when he was basically 17, almost 16 years old. So very, very high level background of Brazilian jiu-jitsu here for Thiago Moises. And Joel Alvarez is just absolutely huge for the weight class. And it's like you mentioned, right? So we look at Alvarez's record. He's 18-2, and he's finished all 18 of his wins inside the distance. 2 of them by knockout, 16 of them by submission. So you would think, right, if you're fighting a guy who's won 16 out of his 18 fights by submission, that you wouldn't try to take him down. But for some reason, Joel Alvarez has faced 4 takedown attempts in the UFC, and he's let everybody who attempted to take him down. He folds like a lawn chair. He wants to be on his back and attacking submissions here. Moises is the kind of guy who might not mind being in Alvarez's guard because maybe he won't feel like he's in any danger. I don't think that would be smart. This guy, you don't rack up 16 wins by submission by accident. This guy is very good on the ground, Alvarez, and he's also very long too. So he presents a very unique challenge in that you have to close the distance, in order to get inside that 7-inch reach disadvantage that you're going to have against him. But once you get inside, you're kind of in his world where this guy's racking up submissions like, he's stacking them up like flapjacks here. And, but it's Moises who's fought the much better brand of competition here in the strength of schedule stats. It's both of these guys are getting hit more than they hit their opponents. Moises has shown a little bit of power on the feet. Alvarez has not, but Alvarez has never been knocked down either. Yeah, this is a very interesting stylistic matchup. Does Thiago want to wrestle and win minutes that way, or does he feel like he has to keep this fight standing? And does he feel like he has to try to win minutes while at a 7-inch reach disadvantage and a 6-inch height disadvantage? I was looking at Moises quite a bit here because Alvarez does seem to ask for the help of his opponents to take him down and get the fight to where he wants it best. But it's really hard to see anybody submitting Thiago Moises that isn't named Islam Makhachev at this point in his career. And I think that Joel Alvarez, I think that he might even be, I think it's at least a 2-year break, but it might even be a 3-year break since we've seen this guy. So, and you look at the fights, Danilo the Caterpillar Belluardo, Joe Duffy with 1 foot out the door, and then Alexander Thunder of the North Yakovlev. These are not impressive wins. They've both lost to Demetrius Magulov. But if you look at the guys that Thiago Moises has had boxing matches with, Alexander Hernandez, Bobby Green, Michael Johnson, boy, you got to feel like he should be better on the feet than Joel Alvarez. But will he be? That's the question.
Yeah, you brought up a good point that I was going to mention. The level of competition is just like night and day. I mean, getting like Alvarez got like dominated by Belluardo in that first round, and then Belluardo kind of gassed out, he reversed him and finished him there. And then, like you mentioned, Joe Duffy, who has not fought. Did Joe Duffy retire officially?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think whatever his last loss was, he was saying going into that fight as like a minus 300 favorite that he was done after that fight. So I remember he was the most expensive on DraftKings that day, and he lost. And not only lost, but I think he got finished in the first round.
Yeah, he did.
Was it Alvarez? Was it Alvarez that finished? Was that Duffy's last fight in the UFC?
Yeah, it was.
So that's the one. I mean, people were thinking that he was just going to go out there and get that easy win. And he didn't. I don't know, man, what to think here. Moises fought the much better brand of competition. It's hard to see Joel Alvarez submitting a guy that has the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu pedigree of Moises here. But, man, I mean, that 6-inch reach disadvantage and the 6-inch height disadvantage is worrisome here. I don't know if I want to lay that kind of juice on somebody that's at this many disadvantages.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I personally think Alvarez is pretty overrated, and I think Moises is actually underrated. I'm really impressed with Moises here. Fought the much better competition as well. And yeah, like you said, Alvarez, is probably going to need a submission to win. Like on the feet, yes, he has the length, the reach, and he is getting better in the striking. But I feel like Moises can just take this guy down easily. Like Alvarez, isn't it like literally like a 0% takedown defense?
0%, but I think that's just because that's exactly where Alvarez wants to be, you know. So I mean, I think he's smiling when somebody tries to take him down. But you know, like you say, this guy Moises, I mean, on paper, he's the better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. It's just that Alvarez has been winning fights over and over and over again when opponents take him down, and it's probably not the best idea. But then when you're standing, you're at this massive length and reach disadvantage too. So very interesting. I'm gonna have to really look into this one, man. This might be one I do a balls deep breakdown on, because this is a very interesting stylistic matchup here.
Yeah, that'd be sweet for sure. But yeah, Alvarez is smiling when he gets it down to the mat, but I feel like Moises will be smiling as well, especially on top. But we do see that Moises is a pretty decent sized favorite. He actually opened up -130. I would have loved that line. He's now -225, getting wider as we speak. Alvarez opened up +110. He's now +190. The fight goes to decision, -185. The fight doesn't go to decision, is +125. I'd kind of lean towards the fight doesn't go. The only problem is I'm not sure Moises finishes Alvarez, whereas I think if Alvarez wins, it will be inside the distance. Alvarez inside the distance +425. Moises inside the distance +245. Moises by decision +120. Really not liking anything out of here besides I like the Moises money line would be about it.
Yeah, you know, and let's not forget 18 wins for Alvarez, 100% inside the distance. But then you look at 5 losses for Moises, and he's only been finished once. So you got a great finisher against a really durable guy on the Alvarez-Moises matchup. And then when you look at Moises, 60% finish rate, that's okay. And Alvarez in his only finish loss has been knockout. He's been knocked out. And Moises isn't really known for his knockout power. So I would think that this fight goes to decision. What's the line on the fight goes?
It's like -165, which I would not touch.
Yeah, I'll stay away from that, dude.
Yeah, for sure. But we will move on to the next fight here. And we have Song Yadong going against Julio Arce. We have Song Yadong, 23 years old, 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. Julio Arce, 32 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Song Yadong is going to be 9 years younger. He's going to have a 1-inch height advantage, but a 3-inch reach disadvantage. As far as Song Yadong, he has 3-1 and a draw in his last 5 fights. A knockout win over Alejandro Perez, a draw against Cody Stamann, a decision win over Marlon Vera, a decision loss to Kyler Phillips, and then a decision win over Casey Kenny. As far as Julio Arce, he had a submission win over Daniel Tamor, a decision loss to Shaman Marias, a knockout win over Julian Rosa, a decision loss to Hakeem Dawadu, and a knockout win, over Andre Yule. So yeah, this is a very, very fun fight. I know, very competitive fight as well, probably close on paper. I'm not sure what the line is, but I'm guessing it's close as well. It's just crazy. You know, you think about Song Yadong, and he's only 23 years old. Like, this was a guy that was fighting Cody Stamann and Marlon Vera at 21, 22 years old. He's training at a very good camp at Team Alpha Male. I think Song Yadong has a huge, huge ceiling, and I think we saw the best version of him against Casey Kenny. I thought he looked really good in that fight. It was a split decision, right? I'm not sure how it was a split. I thought he clearly won the fight, but regardless, I thought he looked really good. So, yeah, really interesting fight here, Weezy. I think it's a pretty competitive one.
Very, very competitive fight between 2 really good fighters. I mean, yeah, Song Yadong, dude, he's been fighting since he was 15, professionally when he was 15. So, you know, at 23 years of age, to have 24 professional fights and 8 of them at the UFC level and 17 wins, it's really impressive. And then at the UFC level, he's 6-1-1. I mean, the only loss to Kyler Phillips, and that one kind of came out of nowhere, man. That was a hell of a performance there by Kyler, and that kind of opened some eyes on him. And then you got Arce, and you say, yeah, we haven't seen much of Arce lately, but then you look at his record. He's 5-2. He's almost been in the UFC cage for 100 minutes. He's fought a third of his career at the UFC level, which is exactly the same percentage that Song Yadong has fought at the UFC level. You look at the finish numbers, neither one of these guys are elite finishers. Song Yadong with a 53% finish rate, Arce with a 58% finish rate. And then if we look at the 9 combined losses for these guys, only 2 of them have come inside the distance. So this fight going to decision would be something that I would be looking at here, because neither one of them great finishers, but also both are very durable. So that's a great combination for a fight goes to decision here. We see that Song Yadong lands one more significant strike per minute than he absorbs, showing really good power for the weight class at 2/3 of 1% of the total significant strikes that he lands result in a knockdown, while it's about 1/4 of 1% for Arce. And Song Yadong never been knocked down in 356 significant strikes absorbed. Arce has been knocked down twice in 253 significant strikes absorbed, but Arce showing a 67% striking defense, while for Song Yadong it's 57. So definitely really nice ratios and significant strike differences here for Arce. I think the only stat that he's not really outdoing Yadong in it defensively would be the what he's absorbing in terms of knockdowns. But it's Yadong who's more accurate and more powerful on the feet thus far. If we look at the grappling numbers, Song not trying a ton of takedowns, only 3 takedowns in 8 fights, averaging about a half takedown per 15 minutes. And about 27% of his fights are taking place in control time positions. But Song Yadong is very efficient with the grappling, Brady. As we look, Song has attempted 7 takedown attempts, but he's had 28 attempted against him. And his opponents have taken him down 8 more times than he's taken them down. But despite all that, he's actually controlling his opponents at the same rate that he's being controlled. So he's very efficient on the ground. When he gets taken down, he gets up. And when he does get a takedown, he does accrue control time and fish for the occasional submission. Arce spends about 20% of his fights grappling. He's gotten 3 takedowns in 7 fights, getting less than 10% control time, but really impressive takedown defense thus far at 93.75% takedown defense. He's only been controlled for about 8.6 minutes of his UFC career. And on 16 takedown attempts, that's really impressive. Arce has great takedown defense. He should be able to keep this fight standing. It looks like Song Yadong and him throw about the same amount of volume. You know, they out-volume their opponents. It's just Arce, it looks like, is a little bit better defensively. It looks like Yadong is a little bit better, a little bit more accurate and a little bit more powerful. And then when we go to the strength of schedule, I do have to give Song Yadong the edge in the strength of schedule, as he's fought the more experienced competition with the better win-loss ratio. You look at wins over names like Casey Kenny, Marlon Vera, Alejandro Perez. I mean, the guys that Song Yadong has beaten in his 6 wins have a combined win-loss record of 32 wins and 18 losses. So very, very impressive. While Arce not to be outdone, but just a little bit less impressive on the total fights and the ratios when it comes to the wins, the losses, and the overall competition. So yeah, it's going to be a very close, very good fight between 2 great prospects, but one of them's 23 and the other one's 32. So if Arce wants to make a run, man, he needs to do it now.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, very good fight here. Both guys are really do impress me. Their striking's very good. I do like the power of Song Yadong, though. I think that's the big factor for me. The power of Song Yadong, also the durability. Have seen Julio Arce knocked down before. He was knocked down, I believe, twice in that Shayman Marias fight. I was able to survive both times, but still knocked down nonetheless. But yeah, I like Song Yadong here slightly. Has fought slightly better competition. I like that he's young. I do expect to see more improvements from him. He's training at a good camp as well. So yeah, I like Song Yadong, but I'm not like crazy about him this week. I think it's gonna be a very close and competitive fight that probably can go either way. We see the line, and Song Yadong opened up -125. He's now -150. And Julio Arce opened up +105. He's now +130 with looks like some money's coming in on Song Yadong. I kind of like the opener a little bit more. I think it should be lined a little bit more closer than the -150 right now. But I do slightly lean towards the Song Yadong side. We see the fight goes to decision, -175. The over 2.5 rounds is -205 on 5 dimes, and then -185 on Bet Online. The under 2.5 rounds is +155. So Yep, I think it does go over as well. Minus 185 is not terrible, but I'm not running to the betting window to pull the trigger on it. How about you? Anything stick out in terms of the line or prop?
Yeah, I like I say, I love the durability of these two guys. And even if you add up the 3 UFC losses, in the UFC, neither of these guys have been finished, while they actually have really impressive finish rates of their own. Arce has finished 4 of his 5 UFC wins, Song Yadong 3 of his 6. So that's 7 out of 11 have finished inside the distance, but they're both very durable. And this is, very good level of competition for both of them. So I do see this going the distance, but at minus 180, I can't run to the window at that price. So, yeah, it's probably staying away from me until I get a little bit better look at who I think is going to win the stand-up battle in this fight, because I think that that's where this fight is won and lost, because neither one of these guys commits to the grappling enough, and Arce's got good enough takedown defense and is just lackluster enough with his offensive takedown efforts for him to, to worry too much about that 60% takedown defense for Song Yadong. I don't have to worry about that as much against an opponent like Arce than I would against somebody like Casey Kenny or Cody Stamen, So, yeah, I kind of like Yadong here, but this is a greasy fight, man, and it could go either way.
Yeah, it's so close. I don't really know why money's coming in on Song here. It's going to be a really close fight. Don't really favor one guy too much and favor the other. So I do want to take the time to say thank you all for hanging out. 140 of you hanging out here on a Sunday. Appreciate all of you guys. We go live every Sunday, 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time, breaking down the next card. It is definitely a grind, especially after last night. I think last night I started getting into the research at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up at like 9:30 and just researched all day. I know Uncle Weezy takes his time throughout the week to put this together, which does take a long time. So it is a bunch of hard work, but it's definitely, you guys make it worth it with all the likes, all the support. Really do appreciate you guys hanging out week in and week out. So let's move on to the next fight. We have Roman Dolidze going against Kyle Daukaus. Roman Dolidze, 33 years old, 6'2" with a 76-inch reach. Kyle Daukaus, 28 years old, 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. Dolidze, he's coming in on short-ish notice. Daukaus was supposed to fight Kevin Holland. I think Kevin Holland got hurt. In steps Roman Dolidze on short notice here. So yeah, Dolidze is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He did make his UFC debut against Khadis Ibrahimov, won by knockout. He had a decision win against John Alon, a decision loss to Trevin Giles, and then a decision win to Laureano Staropoli. As far as Kyle Daukaus made his debut against Brendan Allen, made a pretty good account for himself, I thought. Lost that by decision, though. He had a decision win over Dustin Stoltzfus, a decision loss to Phil Haas, and then that no contest against Kevin Holland a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, I guess I'm still trying to figure out, how good is Roman Dolidze? I mean, this is a guy that it's frightening to bet on him. I mean, he makes so many mistakes. He messes around so much. I remember the fight, it was against John Alon, where he went down for a heel hook out of nowhere, losing position and saying, Coach, should I submit him? And he did it. I think he did it in like the Giles fight as well, like going for, heel hooks, going for leg locks, going for these crazy submissions that, yes, they may work outside of the UFC, but it's not going to work in the UFC, especially against Kyle Daukaus, who I believe is a black belt. So that's terrifying. And on the Daukaus side, like I thought he made a bad account for himself in the Haas fight, where it was Phil Haas who had the better cardio going later into the fight, where Daukaus gassed out. Both these guys have poor gas tanks. I cannot trust either guy, but I feel like this fight's going to be somewhat exciting. So help me out here, Weezy. Kind of struggling to pick a side on this one.
So if we look at the tail of the tape, it's not going to help us much. I mean, Daukaus an inch taller and 5 years younger. We like that. He's also a southpaw. So we'll give Daukaus a slight edge there. And then in terms of total fights, yeah, Daukaus is more experienced, and he's fought a bigger percentage of his career. He's the same percentage of his career at the UFC level as comparison to Dolidze here. He's got more cage time. And Daukaus 80% sub rate, 0% knockout rate, while Dolidze is getting it done both ways. 4 knockouts, 3 submissions. Neither one of these guys has ever been finished in a loss. They're both very durable. Roman Dolidze and Kyle Daukaus are both excellent grapplers. But if we're going to look at, who's more decorated on the international scene, it would be Roman Dolidze. If we look at the striking numbers here, we see very, very low volume numbers actually for both of these guys. These guys throw about as many strikes as a lot of other people land per minute. Dolidze lands 2.36 and absorbs 1.4, and Daukaus lands 3.19 and absorbs 2.61. Dolidze has got one knockdown. Daukaus has 0, and Daukaus has been knocked down once, while Dolidze has never been knocked down. We see some really efficient wrestling numbers for Dolidze, being 9 of 17 on his takedowns, and Dolidze's out-controlling his opponents 43% to 6%. So about half of Dolidze's fights are taking place in control time positions, and we see that Daukaus, not to be outdone, actually getting 1.88 takedowns for 15 minutes and 1.88 submission attempts for 15 minutes. He's out controlling his opponents 35% to 22%, and showing excellent takedown defense is Kyle Daukaus, successfully defending 18 of 21 takedown attempts against. Very good takedown defense, while Roman Dolidze has shown 37% takedown defense. Maybe it's because he wants to be taken down, but even though he's been taken down 5 times and Roman Dolidze has taken down his opponents 9 times, he's out controlling his opponents at like a 7-to-1 ratio. So it's obviously Dolidze, a very efficient, very good grappler. Daukaus also is definitely not afraid to be down there. I think he'll happily engage with Roman Dolidze on the ground, because I don't see Kyle Daukaus being confident enough in his striking to trust it, even when it's working. And that's terrifying, because a lot of times when you watch the tape on Daukaus, you will see him over and over and over again have success with his hands. And then the second he lands big shots, instead of continuing to use his hands and find success there, he'll shoot for a takedown. He almost seems surprised when he hurts his opponents with his hands, and that's troubling for me. If we look at the strength of schedule here, it's Kyle Daukaus all day. They've been feeding Daukaus killers the entire time he's been in here, with the exception of the Stoltzfus fight, while Roman Dolidze is fighting some of the biggest bums to ever walk into the organization here, highlighted by the bum of bums at 205, Hadis Ibrahimov. And, John Allen, Trevin Giles, one of the lowest fight IQs in all of the UFC, and then Staropoli, who's just been really underwhelming. So, this is a very interesting fight, one that I don't have a great read on yet. I think I'm leaning Dolidze here, actually, which is kind of scary, because I'm not a big fan of his. I'm more of a fan of Daukaus, but I think Dolidze might be just slightly the better grappler here.
Interesting. I was not expecting that, because I'm actually leaning Dolidze as well, and I feel
Really?
horrible about it. I feel terrible about it. How can you feel good about Roman Dolidze here? But
Dude,
yeah,
the last time I bet Dolidze, I hated the bet. I cashed the bet, and I was like, that's the worst bet I ever made.
yeah.
Just he's so hard to trust, man.
It's so bad. But I guess some things that do stick out to me: Daukaus' striking defense is atrocious. 40% striking defense. The volume on both sides is concerning, but Dolidze does hit very hard. I think the wrestling advantage does go to Dolidze as well. You see the 52% takedown accuracy. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough fight, man. But what's even weirder is I take a look at the line, and Daukaus is a big dog. I kind of wasn't expecting that. Daukaus opened up minus 140. He's currently minus 230. Like, I could get the minus 140, but I think we're disrespecting our man Roman Dolidze a little bit. But yeah, I'm kind of leaning Dolidze. He's a dog. Am I tempted to bet him? I don't know. I don't know if it's worth losing a couple of years off my life, Weezy. What do you think?
Oh God, yeah, that'd be one where you might have to go to therapy if you don't cash that bet. Whenever it's like, oh man, I bet Roman Dolidze. And then you're just sobbing in that chair while your therapist tries to tell you that you're a good person and that everybody makes mistakes. But we're doing this weekly, and all of our words are just out there for everybody to hear a month later. So when we make mistakes, everybody knows about it. And I don't know, man. Plus 200 is really intriguing to me. It's really intriguing to me for Dolidze. I had no idea Daukaus was this big of a favorite. And and let's face it. before the Holland fight, everybody was trashing this dude.
Yeah.
Okay, he lost some really tough fights to some really good opposition, and they're calling him the bad Dawkins, and they're saying he can't box and all this shit. And then he was a big underdog to Kevin Holland, and then he basically beats him, and then they call a headbutt 10 minutes later. All right. That's recency bias. This line screams recency bias because it was just not too long ago that this guy lost to Phil Hawes and everybody was disowning him. The Phil Hawes that got knocked out in the first round by Chris Curtis, by the way. So I am leaning to Lidze here, not just to potentially win the fight, but I think the value there is on Lidze.
Yep, I think the value is absolutely on Lidze as well. We see the fight goes to decision is -165. The fight doesn't go is +125. The over 2.5 rounds is -175. The under 2.5 rounds is +145. I kind of see it going over. Don't know if either guy gets submitted, and then both guys have crazy good chins. So I kind of see it going to decision, and I kind of like Lidze by decision, which is +345.
That's nice. That's a nice way to look at it because I agree with where the over-under is priced. I wouldn't bet it here. I think it's priced properly because I think it goes to decision. These guys don't get finished. They're both very durable. And we've seen it, in Lidze's fights and in Dawkins' fights. There's not an out to quit in either of these guys. So it probably does go to decision, whichever way you're leaning, especially if you're on that Lidze side. Maybe add just a little bit of juice to that and get it like +350. Instead of, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, I mean, Dawkins by decision is +135, and Lidze is +345. That's huge.
Difference. Yeah, and they got the implied probability of this fight going to decision around 64%. So to be getting plus money on both of them for decision is actually kind of nice because you're paying up to get the fight goes. So that makes, it seems like they mispriced those decision lines just a little bit.
Yep, for sure. Don't hate it. Again, it's very tough to trust Lidze, but even then, like, he's a gasser, but so is Kyle Dawkins. Like I said, he made Phil Hawes look like he had cardio. Like, that was shocking to me. Let's see what Jack Attack's saying here. Lidze arguably should have beaten Giles too. Yeah, I thought Lidze won. I thought a lot of people thought he won as well. Dawkins is sharp on the feet, but if Lidze fights how he usually does, he could be the better grappler, and he's definitely going to have the size. Lidze is somebody that has fought. I think he fought at heavyweight before, 205 especially, but now recently he's fighting at 185. So yeah, good points there. So we'll move on to the next fight, and we have. That's off the card. Ovince, St. Preux, Philipe lands. Thankfully, Weezy is off the card, right? We have Felicia Spencer, though, going against Leah Letson. We have Spencer, 30 years old, 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. Leah Letson, 29 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. Felicia Spencer, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. She made her debut against Megan Anderson, got a submission win over there. Then she lost a decision to Cyborg. She won by knockout against Sarah Farron. She lost by decision against Amanda and then she lost a decision to Norma Dumont. As far as Leah Letson, she is 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Notable wins over Julia Stolyarenko, split decision win there. And the thing with Letson, though, she has not fought in 2 years and 10 months. A long time ago, she's been dealing with some injuries. She is in the military as well, but she's going to go against Spencer here. And, Spencer is somebody I really can't figure out. I'm trying to figure out how good is she really? I mean, what is she known for? She's known for surviving 3 rounds against Cyborg, and she's known for surviving 5 rounds against Amanda Nunes, which that's very impressive. She's really tough, but being tough only gets you so far. In the Norma Dumont fight, I know we were all over Spencer in that fight. I know a lot of people were thinking, hey, Spencer, you're a black belt in BJJ. Maybe try taking Norma Dumont down, but Spencer attempts 0 takedowns in that fight. So I'm really trying to figure out how good she is. Her wins over Megan Anderson in the UFC, submitted Megan Anderson, and then Zara Farn, who's not UFC caliber. Leah Letson, she's okay. I mean, she kind of reminds me of Spencer a little bit. Like, she's really tough. She comes forward. She eats punches with her face. She gets bloodied up in pretty much every fight she's in. But she's a very tough fighter. She's, I think, a purple belt in BJJ. She's really well-rounded as well. Spencer, she's a black belt. The wrestling's not really there, but if she can get the fight down to the mat, she's very dangerous on top. We saw her ground and pound Sarah Farron vicious elbows, and we also saw her submit Megan Anderson. So, yeah, on the feet, I mean, it's really close. I mean, Letson's going to be coming forward. I think it's really competitive on the feet, but I think the big difference is going to be the ground game. Spencer's a legit black belt. If Spencer can get down Letson, I think she could even finish her there. But yeah, I like Spencer here, but I don't know how confident I am. Again, 3-year layoff for Letson. Like, what has she been doing? I know she's been in the military. I know she's been hurt, but maybe she has made improvements. The last time we saw her, she was 26. So, yeah, interesting fight here, Weezy. What are you looking at for this one?
Yeah, this is, God, it seems it just screams stay away from me, but there's interesting wrinkles within the stats here. Leah Letson going to be an inch taller and have a 3-inch reach advantage here. It's Felicia Spencer that's the more experienced fighter. We see Letson knocking her opponents out, 60% of her wins. That's 3 out of 5 wins inside the distance by knockout. And Felicia Spencer, a really good grappler. Great submission game. 50% of her wins by submission, 50% of her wins by knockout. So 100% finish rate for Felicia Spencer in her wins. And she's finished, 75% finish rate overall in the wins, but she's finished both of her UFC wins inside the distance. We don't have much in the way of stats here for Leah Letson. Her only win was against Stoliarenko. She was able to keep the fight standing. Stoliarenko wants to be on the ground trying to get arm bars, and Letson was successful fighting her fight, but it wasn't an overwhelming performance by any stretch of the imagination. But like with Spencer, there are massive red flags, Brady, massive red flags. Not trying to take Norma Dumont down once in a 3-round fight, and that's unbelievably stupid. That just shows piss poor fight IQ and maybe even worse coaching. That's bad. And then you add to the fact that she's 2 of 19 on her takedowns. 2 of 19. So even when she wants to fight on the ground, maybe that's the reason that she didn't even try to take down Dumont, because she knows her wrestling sucks. So she actually tried to outbox her. And she was actually close. She was actually close to winning that fight on the feet, which is really weird, I mean, there's no chance in hell I'm ever betting on Felicia Spencer again. I don't care how many wins she puts together. I don't care how good she looks. I don't care how shitty her opponents are. I'm never betting on her ever again. And I'm not betting on her in this spot, because if this stays standing, Leah Letson's going to have a chance. And Felicia Spencer sucks at takedowns. 2 of 19. That's the Mackenzie Dern numbers, so and then she's being taken down. She's got 30% takedown defense. So even if you want to take down Spencer, you can absolutely do it whenever you want. So Spencer's got terrible fight IQ, terrible wrestling, okay striking, horseshit coaching. And then so I'm like, oh, well, you got to bet Letson, right? Well, she hasn't fought in 3 years. She's only got 6 professional fights. We don't really even know what Letson's great at yet. She's powerful. She's a big girl. She's a natural featherweight. But, even Spencer showed some decent striking, hanging in the striking exchanges with Norma Dumont in the last fight. And then, of course, she's, going, to decision with Amanda Nunes and Cristiana Justino, Cyborg. So you got to think that Spencer's got the big-time strength of schedule advantage, that she'll be the better grappler, and she might even be the better striker. Am I putting money on her? Hell no. But this is a big stay away from me, dude. Are you seeing any angles here?
Yeah, I see a serious angle. The angle is past Weezy. Listen to this line. Spencer opened up actually minus 400.
Whoa.
She's now minus 280. I see her minus 350 still, I think, on FanDuel. It's terrible. It's horrible.
It's terrible. That's just terrible.
Yeah, I think it's the case of, I think Spencer got a little bit overrated. We know how at times these fighters go out there and they fight a really tough fight. She fought a really tough fight against Amanda Nunes, but in reality, she got her ass beat for 25 minutes. Same thing with Cyborg. She fought really tough. She didn't get finished. That's a feather in her cap, but still, she got her ass beat. I think these fighters that are very tough get a little bit overrated, like Chris Moutinho. I guess there's a lot of hype on him now because he's a very tough guy, but he's just not that great. So, Yeah, you mentioned a ton of red flags, right? Spencer's terrible takedown accuracy, bad wrestling. The striking's okay. The bad takedown defense, the bad coaching, the bad fight IQ. And then, like you said, Letson has not fought in 3 years. But from what I've saw, she comes forward. She's very tough as well. She throws a lot of volume, but she is very, very hittable. Like I said, a purple belt in BJJ, well-rounded fighter. But yeah, I got to go with Spencer here, but minus 300 just seems crazy. If anything, I'd probably take a shot on Letson here, but I think the best move is just to pass. The over 2.5 rounds, minus 240. No chance I'm touching that. The under 2.5 rounds, plus 190. No chance I'm touching that. I don't think I'm touching this fight at all, Weezy.
Yeah, dude, if you send me a message at any point this week saying that I'm thinking about betting Spencer, I'm going to kill you. You're dead. You're dead, dude. I mean, there's no way. I would not let anybody bet on this fight, and I'd be mad. But yeah, I just can't do it. The best line on Spencer, minus 280, and that's way better than like minus 350 and minus 330, minus 335. So yeah, I could maybe see taking a flyer here on Letson at plus 260, maybe throw a quarter unit on it for a sprinkle. Hope that Spencer shows some of that inimitable, piss poor fight IQ and bad wrestling and terrible coaching. Maybe we'll see Edmund Tarvarian in her corner telling her to move her head. I don't know, man. Stay away. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, I'd caution anybody, like, don't parlay Spencer at minus 300. Don't do it. Yes, she's fought the better competition, but maybe Letson can surprise some people. We'll see, but I know for sure that I'm not going to have any money on this fight whatsoever. And kind of the same thing with the next fight. This is actually the co-main event. We have Ben Rothwell going against Marcos Rogério de Lima. We have Rothwell, 40 years old, 6'4", with a 78-inch reach. Marcos Rogério de Lima, 36 years old, 6'1", with a 75-inch reach. So Rothwell is going to be 4 years older. He's going to have a 3-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. In terms of the last couple fights, Rothwell 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision loss to Andre Arlovsky, a knockout win over Stefan Struve, a decision win over Ovince St. Preux, a decision loss to Marcini, a submission win against Chris Barnett. Marcos Rogério de Lima, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had a decision win, a submission loss to Stefan Struve, a knockout win over Ben Sassoli, a knockout or a submission loss to Alexander Romanov, and then a decision win over Maurice Green. Yeah, this fight is a shit show. We have Ben Rothwell, who's 40 years old, probably on the verge of retirement here. Marcos Rogério de Lima, 36 years old, not much younger himself. One thing I noticed was Marcos Rogério de Lima does slow down a lot as the fight goes on, but he has a ton of power, especially early on. And when he's typically losing, he's actually getting submitted, which is weird because he's a black belt. But I think Rothwell, for him to win here, I know he hasn't done it a ton lately, but he did take OSP down once. He did take Chris Barnett down once as well and submit him. I think it'd be interesting for Rothwell to actually take down Marcos Rogério de Lima, who has a 50% takedown defense, and potentially get a sub here. But this fight is so tough to call because Rothwell, I mean, he's very, very hittable. His striking defense is not great. One thing I will say, though, both guys are very durable. Marcos Rogério de Lima's last knockout loss, I want to say, was in like 2012. And then Ben Rothwell's last knockout loss was in 2009. So it's safe to say that I don't know if either guy's getting knocked out here. But I could see a possible submission on really either side, but more so on the Rothwell side for me. So, yeah, I like Rothwell. Get the takedowns on the feet. I don't know what's going to happen. It should be funny, though, but give me Rothwell by sub here.
Yeah, I'm going with Rothwell too. Rothwell, see, the first problem with De Lima is he's just a blown-up light heavyweight. He's a light heavyweight that, he could probably make middleweight. I mean, this guy is just fat. And he's a great kickboxer, and he throws with a ton of power. But, yeah, he's just a blown-up light heavyweight, and Rothwell's a natural heavyweight here. And then you look at the experience, dude. Rothwell, 52 pro fights, 26 for Rogério de Lima, twice as much time in the cage, almost twice as long of a career as we got. Ben Rothwell has been fighting since he was 19, almost a 21-year career for Ben Rothwell in mixed martial arts. And he's fought everybody. And then we see, 16 fights in the UFC for Rothwell, 9-7, 12 for Rogério de Lima, 7-5. Let's see, we got Ben Rothwell. over a 39 fight career where he's got 39 wins, 90% have been finished inside the distance, man. That's nuts, dude. That is crazy. Very, very impressive, dude. 31 of 39 wins coming inside the distance. And Marcos Rogério de Lima in 7 professional losses has been finished in 6 of them. So, I could see definitely a path for Ben Rothwell to win this one by knockout here, as Rogério de Lima spends a ridiculous amount of his fights in control time positions, while it's not that way for Rothwell. So we see Rogério de Lima with a ton of power on the feet, right? He's landing a knockdown on 2.58% of the time that he lands a significant strike. So 1.18 knockdowns per 15 minutes. He throws big, big kicks, head kicks, body kicks, and he tries to, punt people's heads into the third row. So, very good, but it's crazy that somebody with that much power and that much kickboxing experience winds up spending over 70% of their fights in control time positions. And then even in addition to that, against Maurice Green, who's a kickboxer, he went out there and he took him down and he laid and prayed on Maurice Green. He was afraid to stand up with Maurice Green. And I don't think he's taken down Ben Rothwell and holding him down. We haven't seen Rogério de Lima's wrestling game until he fought Maurice Green. So these guys that de Lima is beating are complete bums. And Ben Rothwell has been fighting some really tough guys. I mean, if we look at the strength of schedule stats, it's Rothwell all day. If you look at the experience, it's Rothwell all day. If you look at the size, it's Rothwell all day. In terms of power, I would give de Lima a power advantage here. But I think Rothwell's the better mixed martial artist. I mean, if this fight does go to the ground, Ben Rothwell has submitted, really good fighters. What's the name of the catch wrestler that I want to say Chris Barnett, but I know that's Huggy Bear. It's Josh Barnett. He was the first person to ever submit Josh Barnett in Josh Barnett's illustrious career. I'm feeling really good about Rothwell here. I just think he's got more ways to win the fight. He's more experienced. He's fought the better competition. He's bigger. And I just think he's the better mixed martial artist here.
Isn't that crazy? We feel really good about a washed up 40-year-old Ben Rothwell, but it's true, man. It's definitely true. I mean, you take a look at it. He's going to have a 3-inch height advantage, a 3-inch reach advantage. He's going to have I think the cardio advantage is huge. He's going to have the cardio advantage. Although his cardio looks to be diminishing a little bit late in his career, it's still better than de Lima's, who has about a round in him. De Lima, yes, you said he has the power advantage, right? But Ben Rothwell's only been knocked down once in his entire career. And the last knockout loss he had, like I said, was in 2009, a long, long time ago. This guy has an absolute chin on him, even at 40 years old. And on top of that, the ground game. I think de Lima was going to, if he wants to, he's going to have a tough time taking down Ben Rothwell, who has a very good get-up game and a very good takedown defense, whereas de Lima, he doesn't. He doesn't have a good takedown defense. He doesn't have a good get-up game. So, yeah, I think we talked about it. And then the experience or the level of competition is just night and day for Ben Rothwell. So, yeah, I like Rothwell as well. The only problem is he's 40 years old and he's a little bit washed up, but I think it's a good fight for him. We take a look at the odds and we see that Ben Rothwell is a favorite, and he opened up as a minus 150 favorite. He is now minus 141. Interesting. De Lima opened up plus 130. He's now plus 121. Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted, Weezy. I really am tempted. Like, for de Lima to win, what's his path to victory? A first round knockout? Who is knocked out? Who has knocked out Ben Rothwell in the first round as of late? And the answer to that is nobody. His last knockout loss was against Cain Velasquez in 2009 in the second round. So, yeah, I mean, it's tempting, man.
Yeah, you were like in 6th grade the last time this guy got knocked out, man. I mean, yeah. And yeah, the level of competition is a big thing for me here too. And then we got to talk about the fact that one of these guys is just a blown up light heavyweight, and that's not Ben Rothwell. It's de Lima. So, yeah, This could be something at minus 141. I might be looking to throw 1.5 units to win one on Ben Rothwell here. And it's one of the only lines that's sticking out to me so far, just on a pure money line where I'm not betting on an underdog hoping for the best, you know?
Yep, for sure. I mean, it's such a good spot. It just feels like such a good spot. Like if De Lima knocks him out in the first round, so be it. But I just think that's so unlikely. So yeah, Rothwell minus 141 now. Looks like some money's coming in on De Lima. I'm not sure why, but it is regardless. We see the over 1.5 rounds set at 1.5. The over 1.5 open up at minus 120. It's now minus 170. Going to be a very popular over this week, more than likely. The under is plus 140. Not touching that. The fight goes to decision plus 110. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 150. So I know we talked about the money line sticking out. Any props sticking out here?
If I had to bet, I would bet the fight doesn't go here because De Lima has been finished in 6 of his 7 losses. Rothwell, certainly a lot more durable, but it's heavyweights. These guys hit like trucks. And in particular, De Lima, he is dangerous. But yeah, I mean, you're talking 13 professional losses for Ben Rothwell, and 46% of them have come inside the distance. So he's been finished in 6 out of 13 losses. But for De Lima, it's 6 out of 7. So if you add up those 20 losses, you got 12 of them coming inside the distance. That's a 60% implied probability. We should expect to be paying around minus 150, minus 160 for the fight doesn't go. And it is what?
Minus 150.
Oh, so it's priced up or right about where I would expect it to be. Actually, so yep. I'm not touching that.
Yep, sounds good to me. But yeah, tempted on the Ben Rothwell side. We'll see what happens there. But now we have the main event before we do. So if y'all can please smash the like button, be much, much appreciated. Me and Weezy will be going live on my channel, DFS by the Numbers, tomorrow. Probably we'll do 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, around there. And then we're going to go through this fight. We're going to go deep into it, as always, and talk it through you guys on there as well. So tune into that tomorrow on Monday. But yeah, we'll go through it here now. We have Max Holloway, 29 years old, 5'11", with a 69-inch reach. Yair Rodriguez, 29 years old, 5'11", with a 71-inch reach. So both guys are 29. Both guys are going to have a 5'11" height. And then Max Holloway is going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. In terms of the last few fights, Yair Rodriguez, he has 3-1 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. A knockout win over BJ Penn, a knockout loss to Frankie Edgar, a knockout win over the Korean Zombie, the no contest against Jeremy Stephens, and then a decision win over Jeremy Stephens as well. As far as Max Holloway, 2-3 in his last 5 fights, a decision loss to Dustin Poirier, a decision win over Frankie Edgar, a decision loss to Alexander Volkanovski, and a decision loss to Alexander Volkanovski, and a decision win over Calvin Kattar. And one of my biggest regrets of 2021 is going to be not betting Max Holloway as Calvin Kattar. He looked phenomenal in that fight. Probably the best Max Holloway has ever looked. And, Max Holloway, what I like about him the most is his durability. This guy has never been knocked down, and he's absorbed 1,600 significant strikes, 1,652. Which is crazy. He's never been knocked down. Like, this guy's chin is on another level. Don't know if he'll ever be knocked out. Maybe he will, but my goodness, that's so impressive to me. And his cardio is on point as always. Yair Rodriguez, he's no slouch, so he's a really good striker. I like his kicks. He's very dangerous as well. I think it's going to be a very fun and exciting fight. We're in the small cage as well. But yeah, it's a good fight, Weezy. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, it's a great fight, and I'm really excited to see Yair Rodriguez back. It's been too goddamn long since we've seen this guy in the cage. What year was it? Like 2014 when this dude last fought? I mean, it was so long ago, man. And you brought up some of the points that I wanted to bring up here. 1,652 significant strikes absorbed, never been knocked down. Over 60% striking defense for Max Holloway. Really interesting stat here on the grappling side for Max Holloway, right? In 24 UFC fights, Holloway has only attempted 7 takedowns, but he's had 145 takedowns attempted against him. So that means for every 1 takedown attempt Max Holloway has, his opponents have almost 21, right? And so he's getting out takedown attempted at almost a 21-to-1 ratio. And you know what ratio he's getting out controlled at? It's less than a 2-to-1 ratio. He gets 5.37% control time, and he gets controlled 9.41% of the time. And I mean, that is unbelievable in terms of the efficiency, the get-up game, the ability to be able to keep the fight standing for a guy who is the self-proclaimed best boxer in the UFC. This guy is spending 85% of his fights striking at range, despite the fact that his opponents have attempted 145 takedowns against him. So that's the kind of dominance that you expect from a champion. When somebody's really good at something and they're able to do it over and over again successfully because you can't do anything to stop it. We see why Max Holloway is a big, big favorite here. He's got 12 more pro fights. He's been a champion. He's fought 250 more minutes in the pro cage. He's fought 250 more minutes almost in the UFC cage. He's got amazing 84% takedown defense. He's fought the way better brand of competition here. He's beat the better brand of competition here, and he's losing to the better brand of competition here. Striking, Holloway. Strength of schedule, Holloway. The grappling numbers are definitely Holloway because he's keeping his fight standing 85% of the time, while Yair Rodriguez is only keeping them standing about 64% of the time. And we know that Yair Rodriguez is a better striker than he is a grappler. This should be a fun fight, you know? I mean, I don't know what Yair Rodriguez we're going to get. And as a result of that, you know, it kind of just becomes an unbettable line for me with Max Holloway being between -500 and -700 here. That's not bettable. Yair Rodriguez is only 29 years old, and for all we know, he could have made massive improvements while he was away. And not only that, Yair Rodriguez is a damn good striker in his own right. While we see video game-like numbers here for Holloway, landing 7.26 and only absorbing 4.58 significant strikes a minute, you know, over a 24-fight sample size, to have that kind of a significant strike differential and ratio is absolutely spectacular. It's elite. But Yair Rodriguez has got a 1.2 significant strike differential and about, you know, a 1.3 to 1 significant strike ratio. Those are great numbers in his own right. And he's actually been decent getting the fight to the ground every once in a while. But you got to believe Holloway will be winning the minutes on the feet. You got to believe even if Yair wants to get this fight to the ground, he will be unable to. And, you know, Holloway is just more experienced. He's the better boxer, and he's fought the way better brand of competition. And even more importantly, he's been busier. So all the arrows are pointing in the direction of Max Holloway winning this fight, winning it comfortably. But at the current line, I think it's absolutely unbettable.
Yeah, Preston, the guy behind the scenes at Pub Sports, shout out to him. He says Holloway goes from -150 against Cater to -600 against Rodriguez. Like that's crazy there. But the last time we saw Rodriguez fight was back in 2019 in October, so a little bit over 2 years there. And yeah, we see the line is pretty crazy. Max Holloway opened up -400. He's now -700. And then Rodriguez opened up +300. He's now +500. And I expect that line to keep getting wider and wider and wider as the week goes on. For me, like for Yair Rodriguez to win, he's going to have to do something that nobody's done before. And that's going to be knockout Max Holloway, which, I mean, maybe it could happen. What I don't like about Max is he's so hittable, dude. Like he absorbs so many significant strikes. And Yair has really nice kicks, kicks up the middle, head kicks. He could potentially knock out Max Holloway, but that's just crazy to say because we take a look at it here. He's absorbed over 600 significant strikes and hasn't went down yet. So to say Yair is the first one to do it is pretty crazy. So I do get why Max Holloway is a big favorite. He's going to have the volume advantage, the cardio advantage. I think he's going to have a lot of success here. I love the volume of Holloway. And outside of a Yair knockout, I think Max does get it done. We'll take a look at some props here. We see that Holloway, like I said, -700, but Holloway by decision, +166. Holloway inside the distance, -112. Rodriguez inside the distance, +555. Rodriguez by decision, +1,050. The over 3.5 rounds, set at 3.5. Over 3.5 is -135. The under 3.5, +105. The fight goes to decision plus 125, and the fight doesn't go is minus 165. Anything sticking out to you at all?
Not really, man. I could see Max finishing Yair, and Yair, both of his losses have been inside the distance by knockout. This is a 5-round fight. We don't know what he's going to look like. So Holloway inside the distance, I'd look at it, but it's minus 112. I mean, you're paying juice to get a guy inside the distance. That's pretty rare. It just feels like a big stay away from me. Even the over 3.5, under 3.5 is just kind of sitting around, even money there. It's flip a coin. I don't like this one, man. This line is way too juiced. It should be Holloway all day, but I can't bet Yair. I don't think there's even not enough value there, even at plus 500 on the money line. It's just not enough for me. Does he win this fight 1 out of 6 times? I don't know.
Nah. And the thing with like Max Holloway inside the distance, it's like he doesn't have a ton of power. A lot what he's throwing is just volume.
Yep.
I mean, he landed 445. That's crazy against Calvin Kattar and didn't put him out. Regardless, like Calvin Kattar is tough, but still, and he hasn't had a knockdown since 2017 against Jose Aldo. And I think, he's knocked down 3, 5. He has 6, 7, 8 knockdowns in the UFC. So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like what somebody in the chats. Let's see if I can pull it up here. This is kind of how I'm going to approach it, I think, depending on the line. Max 4-5 decision, I think, is going to be on FanDuel. I think Bovada has it as well. I think the 4-5 decision could be a lot better than the minus 700. I think if Max Holloway does win, I think it is probably by decision, or I could see like a late knockout as well. So I think that's how I'm going to be attacking it there. But Melon saying at minus 112 is amazing inside the distance. The elbows he landed on Kattar would put Yair out potentially. Max decision is, let's take a look. Max decision
plus 166.
Plus 166. So these props just don't really get me too excited here. But maybe the 4-5 decision, if it is a good line, that's like the only thing I'd look at it. But if that's chalk, then it's gonna be a pass for me. In terms of even like Holloway as a parlay piece, like minus 700, that's really wide.
Yeah, it's just too much. I mean, you don't get in the habit of straight betting fights that are minus 600, and that means if you're not straight betting it, now you're either picking out props and kind of like reducing your win condition, or you're parlaying things. And God, I hate parlaying things, man. Vegas is built off of parlays.
That's 100% true. All right, but I think we covered it all there, Uncle Weezy. So I guess just let them know where they can find you and let them know what you got going on throughout the week. I know we'll be back here Tuesday, and you have your show Tuesday as well.
Yep. Find me on Twitter at MMA Weezy, and you can find me on YouTube at my channel, Uncle Weezy. I do balls deep breakdowns of fights, and I do a full card breakdown every Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Central Time, called Just the Tip. I'll be doing it this week on Tuesday night, going through all 12 of these fights from a statistical perspective. I'll see you on Tuesday on Pub Sports Radio for the DraftKings show, 6 p.m. Central Time. And thank you all for spending your Sunday night with us. God bless each and every one of you, and really appreciate Pub Sports Radio having us here every week to do this show. I love doing it with you, Brady.
Yep, there's nothing else I would want to do on a Sunday than hang out here with you, Weezy, and everybody in the chat as well. You guys can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers. Instagram is DFS by the numbers. My prediction video will be out probably like tomorrow night sometime. I'm about done with my research. I'll be back with Weezy tomorrow as well, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, around there, for the main event deep dive. And then back here on Pub Sports Radio on Tuesday with Uncle Weezy. I'll be here on Wednesday with Billy Briz covering some NFL, and then Friday as well. So as always, thank you guys hanging out. Roy, I see you there. Nathan, we have Calm, Jack Attack, all you guys, Dad, Trader, Area, Hilwani. I like it. Real News MMA. Appreciate you guys as always. Smash a like on your way out, and we will see you very soon. Good luck for UFC Vegas 42. Let's make some money, guys. See you.